Ladies and gentlemen, this episode 16 of the Sackdown. We are joined by one of the 5 heroes of North America, Bwipo, was won the LCS this year, formerly LEC champion, was in the World Finals as well with Fnatic, of course. Very storied players. Let me ask you in the first place, Bwipo, how do you feel in the aftermath, the reflection overall? A lot to take in after such a journey.
Yeah, it always is. Honestly, it was a good year. I think I'm very happy. I'm very happy with the decisions FlyQuest's made. Very happy with the work we all put in, and I feel like I disappointed my team in the very end. I feel like the Renekton games, especially, that was like kind of my signature pick this year. I really fell short, and I felt pretty bad about that. So that in particular, as well as the Urgot game I threw by getting caught. I feel like if I had played better in those games, I definitely think I could have made a bigger difference, and we could have had an even better Worlds. But even with my flaws and the mistakes I made, I think we did good.
No, for sure. I remember the 2 games that you pointed out. I think the Renekton game was in the swap when you got chunked, right? And I remember it was very punishing. And then How Life was very, very peculiar in the way they approached the game, right? Where they didn't open on mid ever. They just opened on your Gromp, I think 3 times. They killed Inspire twice there. They killed you. I wanted to ask, in terms of how you play, do you ever give yourself a little bit more forgiveness because of how on the edge that you play? Because I think that in terms of using every resource, it's almost that sometimes you will go overboard unless everything just goes right. Like, for example, the Galio game you had against Genji, right? Do you think that's just an element of a risk that you carry in the way that you approach the game?
I think that's an element of risk that my teammates profit from. I think in general, in the way our team is structured, I think risk-taking was a responsibility that was assigned to me. I think most of our players are not naturally risk takers, and as a result, I think my coaching staff basically and me came to the conclusion, like we talked about it, and we came to the conclusion that in order to progress the game, me taking risks is the best way to do that. Obviously, if we have advantages and things just go our way, like in the Galio game, there's no need for that, but that's rare and obviously very hard to do at Worlds. But yeah, I mean, that's how I understood it, at least. Obviously, after reflecting upon it, I still feel that way. I feel like, especially with Alan or Busio, our sport player, being inexperienced, I think that pulling the trigger more often than not and making sure that he didn't feel the need to, because he knew I was going to do something, I think that helped him a lot. And in general, like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, as a team, like after all the scrims we played, after all the official matches throughout the year, I think this was the conclusion we came to is the best way for us to play. And as a result, I just I just went for it. Fuck it.
It makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I think, like, especially in the beginning of the tournament, I did feel like your like FlyQuest as a whole, I feel like Worlds is always, in my impression, always due to the hectic schedule and how everything is. It's like the amount of growth you can do, most of it happens on stage. I feel like all teams improve real time if they can like overcome the hurdles that they do. I remember your initial games, especially like the one against Damwon and then the one against PSG. In the beginning, I felt like the first initial games you guys were a lot more timid. I think especially the PSG game, you had to take a lot of the action in your hands. I remember that Renekton, when you caught enemy rel on mid and you were just putting your body on the line and finding engages. Did you feel that there was an active progression? Did you guys actively feel that you were improving in the games? Or was it a question of you need to be warm to the stage more?
I think we were improving, and also like I think a big deal when you play internationally is even when you're experienced as a player, coming back to Worlds and realizing like, oh, this is what you need to do. Like I would separate it in 3 categories. When it comes to League of Legends, is like this is what I need to do to win the game. This is what I would like to be able to do to make the game easier to win, and this is what I have to avoid if I don't want to lose. I think at Worlds, it becomes so much more pronounced what those things are. Because, well, you play against the best teams in the world and you do the third, right? The ladder of what I described, you lose the game very quickly. And, like, it feels suffocating. because against the best teams in the world, that's what they do. So as a result, you have to be precise in how you execute your own play, and then when you recognize opportunities. Because if you give them an opportunity, or give any of their individual players an opportunity, they're going to run away with the game. And that's very different from domestic play, where a lot of times you play against teams where they're just not very good compared to the best in the region. You know me, I throw people under the bus all the time, so I'm not going to be shy to do it here. But for example, like if UMT had a gold lead when we're playing against TL, like no one cares. Like, don't give a shit. You play against Gen G, you look at all 5 of those players, and you're like, "Fuck," like. Shit.
Yeah.
There's players where he's like, "I definitely don't want that guy to have a gold lead," but there's no one that makes you go like, yeah, if top lane has a gold lead, that's fine. If jungle has a gold lead, that's fine. Like there's none of that. It's like anyone has a gold lead, it's like, fuck, the game's hard. Especially if none of your side have a gold lead to kind of compensate for that. And that's not the case in LCS. That's not the case. I mean, I'm even speaking of the second best team in our league. The further you go down, the more of those individuals there are there, where it's just like, that guy's up 1k gold, it doesn't matter. That guy's got up 1k gold, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter in the sense that it's not like it's meaningless. It's just like, they won't influence the game in a way where you don't have a chance to win anymore. And that is what happens when you play at Worlds. Both the team is better at playing around that individual, but also that individual is much more proficient in making sure that the gold lead is felt and everyone else bleeds. And that comes from something I like to call spreading the love. Players are just way better at spreading the love. It's like when I get a lead, everyone knows I teleport bot lane, I do my thing, and I spread the love. Everyone gets to feel it a bit. My bot lane gets the teleport pressure, perhaps the ganks, just the fact that I'm willing to do it, or I'm communicating actively that I want to do it because I have push all the time, or maybe my jungler, gets to invade a camp because I'm going out of my way to put a deep ward, or there's very small things that you can do, there's very large moves you can make, but I'd say fundamentally, Asian teams play a 5-man game much better because individually they all know how to spread the love. When one of them gets a lead, everyone gets to enjoy that on their team.
It's something that I mentioned briefly, but it's a bit of a tangent, but it follows up on what you just said. Again, in Champions Queue, you played against players like, I'm trying to remember the Egyptian pharaoh, I only know his nickname, Boda and Naknako and some other top laners too. Usually, like they know how to lane well, but they don't know how to take charge of the game and progress the game. Sometimes it's like viewing your champion through the lens of all the other 9 champions and the state of the game in terms of knowing when you can have the most impact in terms of your items and your chances and your opportunities. What would you say is, like, I would say this is probably your biggest strength and what makes you like an outlier, like in terms of top lane. What would you give as advice to players that are lacking that instinct, because most of them are just honing the skills in solo queue, right? They're just good laners and they play their champ mechanically, but they never get to be in positions where they carry the game.
I mean, that's the first thing, is like behave that way in solo queue, like if you just keep playing for LP and keep playing for Lane Kingdom and you never like play the lines where you're roaming and like helping your teammates, then you'll never know. That's just the way it is. Like you have room to. You don't need the LP, do you? I don't think so. Does anyone care if you're 1k LP or 2k LP or 500 or even master tier? Like nowadays, no one gives a shit what LP you are as a pro player. So use it to your advantage. Like even in my day, there were plenty of D2 pros that were considered like really good, Mithy the GOAT, like one of my favorites. Love working with him, but he didn't give a shit about solo queue, and he only practiced what he needed to practice, and that is ultimately what you should be doing. Obviously, I do think that even when you are practicing, and playing lines that are not your best or in your best interest to win that particular solo queue game, you should be good enough as a pro player to brute force wins against solo queue players. Different topic altogether. It doesn't really matter. But my point is, that's just what you need to do. Like, I don't know, just go and walk bot lane, see what happens when you drop 3 waves, see what happens when you drop 2 waves. Like, play the line and see what happens. A lot of people come to the conclusion that it's a playable game. What I always say is, like, look, if you're just laning and you get ganked and you get double killed, you fall behind what? Like 600, 700, 800 gold, right? And you lose a wave, maybe a wave and a half. So basically, if you add up all that together, you lost like 4 waves worth of advantage, maybe even 5, right? What I'm trying to say is, you can still farm after that or play the game after that most of the time. Like if you get double killed in a competitive game and you are down 2 kills, 2-0, enemy top laners 2-0, and you lost some waves, like yeah, the guy's up 800 gold, half a level, if not a full level, and you're probably fucked. But you're not that screwed, right? You can still play the game. People have proven this over and over again. I'll give you an example. Back in season 7, I think, maybe even season 6, people realized that if you're playing Narn to Renekton Elise and you just literally drop 2 waves, the cannon wave and the 4th wave, and then you just walk into the tower and you end up being level 4 to 3, as Nard being level 3 to Renekton's level 4, you can still lane. You are fine. And Mega Nard as level 4 will push in Renekton as level 5. It's possible. You might need your jungler to come if Elise stays there, but my point is you can buy time for your jungler to path up by doing this. And if you're able to navigate that and not give them first blood, which would be the alternative, you're still going to lose that farm because you can't even TP back in after you died, right? So just don't give them the kill, and it turns out that that's the best way to lane. And Elise is not farming, you not farming, it's the best you can do. And people came to that conclusion because they played against Renekton Elise, died, and realized, hey, I'm still useful. I can still farm and match Renekton later. And all I'm trying to say basically is it doesn't make sense to me that people don't apply the same logic for something like teleporting bot lane or roaming bot lane, roaming mid lane, giving up 2 waves for a certain whatever. Obviously, it's it's something I've done my whole career at this point, but it came from understanding that in my team, I didn't need to do anything. So if I could find a way to give my players an advantage, this is back in Season 8, by the way. I'm speaking of Season 8. That team was so
Avengers
good,
got
like,
the TP, just to loop everybody in that are watching.
Yeah, it's like in Season 8, that Fnatic roster was so good that you could have played any top laner and they would have won both splits. Like they were just way better than everyone else. Individually, as a team, like they were just really fucking good. So I came to the conclusion of, if I give my teammates an advantage, I'm always going to win. Right? Like that's just going to happen. Like Rekkles and Caps would always carry the game. Like there was 1 in maybe 25 games they wouldn't carry if they weren't in a good position, and usually you grief them if they didn't. So in scrims, instead of playing at the 700th game where I'm farming every single creep and waiting to get carried, I have a look and see what happens when I go and help them. It turns out it increased their win rate. I don't know. It's like so weird to me that people, especially professional players, but also coaching staff, like, why not tell your players, like, hey, like, I don't know what I just explained. I feel like I should be able to convince anyone to try, right? Because I'm not asking you to be convinced that it's good. I don't know if it's good. Some things I'm sure of because I've done it many times. But how many games of League do you think a pro plays? Like 6 scrims a day, right? Or 5. Do that times 5 or 4, I don't know. 20 games a week. You tell me if you spend 2 games of those 20 on specific strategy like I'm mentioning, that it's really going to hurt your chances that much in the long run? I can't believe it. And even if your argument is, yeah, we should play all 20 scrims, with no deviance, like we need to play like the perfect style, then at what point has your team reached enough practice that you can deviate? Because I think your players are just not, how do I say this in a way that's not like really rude? Like your players are just dumb if you need hundreds of scrims to realize what the best way is to win the game as a professional. That's my opinion. Like I genuinely think that you are just stupid. I think it takes 2 weeks tops. And that's actually funny because 100 games is like pretty much the benchmark I would say. Like 100 games is like the maximum I would set. If after 100 games you're on a professional team and you don't know who your best players are and how you should be conducting yourselves as a team, you either don't care, you're not looking at it, and yeah, basically, I mean that's the 2 things, right? Like you don't care and you're not looking at it. That's why I think. Go ahead, Aaron. You can jump in.
No, I wanted to agree on the notion that I think is very important. It's like you carry so much knowledge about the other lanes, and that allows you to see opportunities where other top laners don't. Because I think in most cases, like some of the players that we mentioned, or I think in most cases for top lane, they view how they can play the game in a very linear fashion, whether it was like Alfari or someone like Shigenda. It's like they lane well, they play the champ well, but whenever the game becomes dynamic or there are opportunities to do more, I think that in most cases top laners or in a lot of cases, a lot of players just miss them because it's usually like the path to pro is very cookie cutter. It's like you get high elo, you play ERLs, and then it's like you really get rewarded somehow in terms of how you move forward in playing a certain way. And then in a lot of cases, I have worked with ERL players that are very easy to shape, and then I've worked with ERL players that are much harder to shape because they've done things a certain way because that has like rewarded them for a very, very long time. I think a good example was the game that you played, right? It's like, I think most top laners would completely fold in a situation where, like you played that Olaf game, right? Like against the Rennek. I believe like on wave 3, he like traded really well on you so he could like bounce the wave and crash the big one with Zyra dove you, and then they killed you between towers. I think in most cases, top laners, like most players, are just going to sort of lose the game from that point. But you found like a roam timer on the freezing wave bot, I think, into top side. And then like I think your mid laner fixed the bot wave, and then you found the fight on top. And then in the end, it's like you came back to be like probably the strongest champ on your team because you were okay with the circumstance being dynamic and you could see opportunities through other ways than how most players that pick Olaf against Renekton is like, oh, I need to be able to trade aggressively. If I can't win the lane and I'm weaker, then my champ is useless. Because I think in most cases people view it like that, right? And I think the advantage you always carry is like why we in the case we push for you to jungle in Fnatic that summer split was because you carried so much information. And agency is something that is really, really good in your hands, right? I think that you do so well with agency in terms of transferring that. Like I remember you told me the concept of someone being like the president, where it's like, yeah, my this player is strong, my jungle is strong, he wants to invade, then I'll make sure to be there on the invade. Like I'm going to not pull his opportunity away from what I need to create when he wants to leverage an opportunity. And I think that this is like your biggest advantage as a player, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that's a hard thing to do. And when I'm speaking of what I think that disappoints me in how people practice, is actually like, that's step 2. Because that's really hard because you have to include everyone else's information into your decision. What bothers me is that people don't practice well with their own knowledge. Like, you already know how the lane goes. Like, you don't need to play the 700th Gnar Renekton game to know what's going to happen in the next one. You can explore a bit and see what happens when you play Renekton in a certain way. I'll give you an example. I started Eon in that matchup starting when I realized it, because I was playing this matchup and I was just like, I feel like I have to be able to squeeze something here. Like, there's no way that I'm weaker than him by this much. And I realized, into Vladimir, for example, or in other matchups, you can skill E and you can just fight the guy level 1 and then you have, when you're both half HP, you get more Fury, and then you one-shot him with W, right? Mm. And I watched, like, One Tricks play. I watched, like, the general concept came to mind, and I realized, like, it's kind of stupid to let Gnar push you in as Renekton. Like, it really is just dumb. You should just skill E and fight him. There's no reason not to. His auto-attack range is too low, and when you crash 3 waves, you can, at the very minimum, get a deep ward, and that's relevant for a champion like Renekton, because, well, you're really strong at level 6. So if you have information on the enemy jungler, you can almost always set up a tower dive or take grubs for free or do something. Like, there's always something to take as Renekton when you're level 6. And everyone else is, or like the only other level 6 guys than are the top laner in this case. So in this matchup, it's huge to know what's going on with the enemy jungle pathing. And that's from that point onwards, I was just like, I don't care about this matchup. You should never ban Gnar for Renekton. It just doesn't matter because I'm going to have I'm going to have at least a deep ward, if not a tower dive opportunity. Maybe I even roam mid lane. I can even do that because even if I drop 3 melees, it doesn't change the matchup. And yeah, it's like, once I realized that, I was just like, holy shit, this matchup's actually quite good for Renekton. Now, they did buff him with +3 base AD for Worlds, so that made it a bit harder to do, and in general, Gnar was just way stronger. So even though I could still contest him in the first 3 levels, the matchup got more difficult later in the game, as in like levels 5, 7, 8, 9. And then obviously mid-game you couldn't do anything, but that's always been Renekton and Gnar, pretty much. So that's why, that's what disappoints me. Well, what you're talking about is great and all, but that's step 2. That's like everyone else has gone through that kind of those decision routes.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone knows what's going on because they've experienced it. I'm a big believer of the reason why I can look at the game and have a good experience is because I've played those roles. I know what it's about. I know how it feels to play AD carry and stare down a tank champion that no one is hitting. It feels impossible to play the game. Like, if an Ornn walks up to you and no one on your team even bothers to hit him or CC him because they're saving their CC for the backline, the game's unplayable because you can't hit him. Right?
Yeah, of course.
If your team commits on the Ornn and they all go in and try to kill him, it's also unplayable. Because Ornn won't die before your front line will die, because Ornn's usually the tankiest champion in the game. In mid-to-late game scenarios. So what do you need to do? You need to just CC him and run away. You need to poke him. You need to punish him for taking space and then back off. Lure him in. Because the CC isn't fast. It takes time to set up. So you can lure him in. And I don't know, it's just so simple. But then you watch professional players play and they just don't know how to do it. Or they don't even try to do it. They're just clueless. They're just like, oh, he's too tanky. I guess I'll lose. And it's just like, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you're playing solo queue, like, you can try this as a pattern. You can see this. That's why I got so angry when I was streaming. I was so angry. It's like, dude, like, it's League of Legends the same game. 2018, 2019, like, the same shit G2 Fnatic did those years. It still works today. Sure, people got better and, more strategy and, you have to be a bit more nuanced in what you're doing, obviously. Think of it like an Olympic record, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are still running. It's still fundamentally a sprint.
Yeah.
People got better at sprinting, but the strategy, the techniques used... Okay, I'll be honest with you. I'm not actually 100% sure if the techniques changed. But the strategy of us run as fast as possible in these 10 seconds, it's still the same strategy, right? Same with, like, a marathon. Like, running a marathon. I'm fairly sure that running a marathon has been a thing long enough that there's no new strategies. And don't get me wrong, if there's someone inventing new strategies to run and shit, like, props to you. You are insane.
It's like new shoes and controlling wind resistance and...
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's nuanced, bro. Like, I don't care about that. Like, this is completely irrelevant. Like, the base strategy of me champion strong, me go fight, that's what is necessary to win a PvP game. League of Legends is a 5v5 game. It doesn't say... I don't know, 1500 versus 1500. It's not about the 1500 creeps that spawn or the jungle mobs or the Baron. No, it's 5v5. It's a player versus player game. So if you go on an international stage and you farm and wait to lose or wait for the game to end, either way, you're going to lose because in League of Legends, the team that is PvPing proactively gets rewarded because they get the neutral objectives. So if he walks into the river and says, I'm going to fight you, and you say, I don't want to do that, well, then he gets the neutral, right?
I feel like you're going down a path of a separate point. Maybe I misunderstand because I felt like the first point was in regards to how I would represent your first point and how I understood it is like too many players accept something for what it is and they don't understand the why. And as long as they don't understand the why, they can't push for more. So they just accept something for what it is and just let time pass.
So I've thought about this a lot, and that's the thing. The why is mathematics. It's maths. It's a calculator can tell you the truth. So when I roam in that Olaf game, when I roam and my game is screwed and I'm getting less gold than everyone else, why do I feel the need to break the status quo? Because if the game keeps going and everyone gains the same... the allocated gold that you're getting at the same rate, I'm going to end up being useless.
Yeah.
I'm getting less gold because I'm weak. Because when I walk somewhere and try to farm something, the guy can come and stop me from farming, or his jungler can come and kill me. So I'm automatically farming less than everyone else because I'm always scared of dying. And if I die, I'm giving them more resources. So I have to break the status quo. But my point is, I came to that conclusion because of maths. Everyone's earning 1,000 gold per minute. I'm earning 700 gold per minute because I'm scared of dying and I have to drop some CS or I can't farm a jungle camp like they can. These numbers are completely, they're for simple reasons.
Yeah.
They're different numbers. But my point is in a game where Olaf is farming 700 gold per minute and everyone else is farming 1,000, which is, not actually what happens. And again, these numbers are not real. Either way, in the same circumstance, if Olaf is farming 300 gold per minute, everyone else farming 500 gold per minute, Olaf will in fact be useless. That's just a fact. So what does Olaf need to do? He needs to break the status quo. He needs to go somewhere and say, I can't let you farm anymore. If I can't farm much, I have to at least make you not be able to farm. Hence, you will base, walk opposite side, and overload. This is the term people use for ganking the same lane as your other solo laner or your other bot laner, right? And then the question is, can I run mid lane as Olaf and do anything mid? I thought not, right? I hope not. It'd be a big problem. The enemy team would be trolling quite hard. So I have to run top lane. I have no other choice. And like, I don't know, man. Like, it took me, 30 seconds to explain this idea? It's very simple, and that's what I'm saying. People will have this notion of, like, the game is so much harder than it really is. The strategy of the game is not very hard. It's mathematics. I really think so. And don't get me wrong, once you go down the path of once Olaf roams and he's in the position of making a play, then it gets really fucking complicated. No doubt about it. So that's why I wanted to the point I was trying to make is the game is a lot easier than people give it credit for. People just don't explore the different lines of play because they don't look at maths. Like, they don't look at the gold income, the experience income. And I think that LS actually does a really good job of bringing this up, right? That's why a lot of people see what he's trying to say. I just think that he's convoluting the first concept of the game is about maths with instantly going into the complicated lines. Because he thinks that everyone's kind of got the idea, right? Like, everyone's like, yeah, the game's about maths, it's not hard. But then people need to actually sit down and accept that for a second. And I've come to realize that a lot of people just need time to do that. They actually need time to realize that when you invade, and I'm going to take the opportunity to talk about it here because it's just me and you. But when I coach people, this is what I do. I tell people 1 gold is not equal to 1 gold. Shocking, right? And I always use this example of Lee Sin and Gwen. I know it's not exactly the same, but the point is Lee Sin gets 40% attack speed at level 1 and level 18. It doesn't go up, it doesn't move, it's always 40%, at least currently. Gwen goes from getting her attack speed buff at level 1 rank in E, from 20 to 80 at rank 5. What does that mean? That means if you buy 2 longswords on a champion with 40% attack speed at level 1, he's going to be stronger than the champion that has 20% attack speed. However, as the game progresses, that champion unlocks points in their ability, and they will get to a point where their 2 longswords, their 20 AD, will be worth more gold because they have 80% attack speed. It's that simple. That's scaling explained. So, this is the last and final step before it gets complicated. Is you have to accept that you individually scale a certain way. And you scale a certain way compared to other champions.
Yeah, it's contextualized to all champs,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. That's the hard part. That's, again, one of the hard parts of the game, is understanding the way your champions interact. Xayah gets 20%, 25 now actually, she got a buff. 25% increased damage on every auto attack she does when her W is active. Holy shit. She not only gets that buff, she also gets like X amount of attack speed. So everyone realizes, holy shit, this champion does the most, right? Like she pumps mass. She will deal more damage than most other AD carries when that buff is active. Kog'Maw is another great example of his W being like, oh, when this is active, it's a problem. It deals the most. Like, it deals so much damage. So you need champions that are able to either not interact with her when her W is active, or you're kind of fucked. That's why she's been such a strong champion in competitive, right? There's very few champions that can actually jump into her range and then get out because she has a root. Obviously, her teammates will CC you. So it's almost impossible to kind of like jump in and jump out. You can't do that. So the only option you really have is outranging her, which is why Xayah is considered to be a great scaling champion for the most part. And I don't want to get into too much details, but it's that simple. Like, if you drafted Varus and they drafted Xayah, and Varus and Xayah both hit a target, even if the first champion you kill, because Varus deals quite a bit of burst, dies at the same time or roughly the same time, as the fight goes on, Xayah's going to start mowing down people a lot quicker. And I don't think that's a hard concept. I think it's rather easy, actually. The hard part is implementing. And I think that's where people get lost. And I think that people get lost in implementation because they don't ground themselves in these basic ideas. And that's what disappoints me. That's what really disappoints me about professional players, about staff members. I don't know how people don't explain it like this, because it's clear that whenever I speak to an up-and-coming pro player, that they don't have a grounded idea of the basics of the game. Me personally, when I play a game, I set the rules. Like, I try, not even set the rules, sorry. I try to understand the rules, excuse me. Right? It's the first thing I do. You probably do too, right?
Yeah. This episode is powered by Raycon earbuds. So I've talked about these before together with Dom many times. You know, they've been an avid supporter of course, the podcast. But this time around, you know, Cyber Monday, Black Friday is coming up. You can get 30% off on these amazing earbuds. I use them to the gym always. Very simple. They fit in my ear. Super nice. You can customize them however you want in vibrant colors. You don't need to do the basic gray ones like I have. You can do whatever you want. I like them simple. 32-hour battery life is a super big deal. I want to also add, you know, Raycon, they compete with all the biggest names that you can think about when it comes to earbuds, but they start at half the price. And that is even before you factor in the deal. There's a 30-day guarantee, you know, satisfaction is guaranteed when it comes to Raycon. So what are you waiting for? It's time to save big for, of course, Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Go to buyraycon.com/sackdown today to get up to 30% off site-wide. That's right. You'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/sackdown. What are you waiting for? Improve your life. Do it now. It's like there is a certain, like when you lock your champ, you contextualize it to all 9 other champs, because scaling is obviously always different. It's like people, obviously there's some champions that just do better with gold, like Gwen is a great example that it scales almost always, but there are definitely games where some champions scale better, and there are certain elements of your composition that matter more, right? I think when you pick something later, right? Like if I was in a team with you and you are 5 picking, you are picking something that is going to be able to carry the game most of the time, right? Like if you can find something that can win lane and also carry the game in the context of all the 9 other champs, then you pick something that scales and you'll reach breaking points where you can defeat every other champ. Like you're not going to pick something that is going to be like, if your composition is lacking at that point, you need to pick something that is going to basically break the enemy comp somehow, right? It's like if they show rock, you need to show paper, like a 5. And if that's what you're missing, right? It's like it's always contextualized to everything else, and tying it to the previous thing. I think like the easiest example for everyone to understand that is listening, I think like lane swapping, not necessarily like the first aspect of it, but how it extends throughout the game, and how like the active pursuit for gold and the active decision that happens. There was this example, I believe it was game 2, where basically like Zeus, he walks up, he's playing Ornn, I believe, into Rumble. He walks and he's participating in a grub fight, and then he sees that his bot wave is slow pushing into enemy. And then there was a very simple decision. It's like, I'm not going to be on time bot, so I want to do something if the enemy guy goes bot, because I have no other option. So he just stayed top and he just sieged there. He just hung out, and eventually they dove and they did like as you mentioned, it's like the complicated part is how they executed the 5v4, because it was very, very narrow and very close. But the idea of, I'm going to lose gold there, so I want them to pay a price for showing a man there. The same way that Renekton was on the bot and he based and he didn't participate in the play, you wanted him to pay a price for playing his game by curving the opportunity in a different direction. And then the final thing to add, I always bring this up on stream, like in 2022 working with Hilly, I think he's very, very good at this, because there was a time like we were scrimming, and the players were rather quiet. Like they were like, we're farming, we're winning, we're taking it easy. And they didn't like specify breakpoints or how they wanted to drive the game. The game was like going silent, and the enemy AD had no flash. And Hilly was playing Leona with flash and Giant's Belt. And he's pushing to fight, he's pushing to fight, he's pushing to fight. And then in review, he's saying, guys, this is the strongest I'll be in the game. If you guys don't tell me that you want to drive the game in some different direction and you give me breakpoints, I will want to fight here because I will not get stronger in the game. Mm-hmm. It's like understanding the impact of your champion connected to everything else and understanding your percentage odds in regards to what will come in the future. Because as you mentioned yourself, there are a lot of games that just simply bleed out. I think the World Finals is such a good example where the community sees like them trying to catch the Silas on top as them just inting, but they just see, oh, we are 5k goal behind, they're pushing side, they're going to push us out, so we're going to trap this Silas because this is like one moment, a window where potentially we can try to one-shot him. If we don't, we lose, but probably we lose anyway because over time they're going to just grind us out and kill us. And both teams did this, right? One time they tried to catch Knight on Galio on top and they just tried to break the frame of what the enemy was doing to set up Nash, and they did it as 3, couldn't kill Galio, looked like Inters. And this is just like calculating your odds in the game. Sometimes, but going back to Hilly, there are moments where the enemy was pushing our Nexus and he just fucking flash Rs with Lulu forward because he's in the state of mind. If enemy base is here and they come back with their 1,000 gold spent, and then the game is just over. So he's looking for something. It's just moving your percentage from maybe 1% to 2% because you need to challenge the status quo and you just put yourself in charge and understanding what is coming, right? And I feel like everything is kind of connected, right? Because in the end, it's just like your relation to everybody else in the game in terms of the champion, and also your relation to the economy of the game, because all gold is not equal. As you mentioned yourself, like all gold is not equal. Some leads are not as good as other leads because sometimes there are moments where like you watch pro games and it's like a team can be 4k gold ahead and then it's like they walk into a fight. Maybe it's like the enemy team didn't finish recipes, they just sit on components. Maybe this is the best chance you have to fight. It's like your 4k goal down. There was an example in the finals as well. I remember there was that exact same game where they like dove, and I remember like Ash finished Kraken, Dagger, everyone was on 1-1-1 against enemy 1-1-1, and Kalista was the one that was super fed. She had a pickaxe, recurve bow, and it's like, this is the best moment you have to fight. You need to take this fight because what's coming later is completely over, right? And it's like you always need to be very actively in tune with these ideas. And I think it comes back to the initial thing that we brought up, is that everyone is so scared of being uncomfortable in their practice that they seek things that are comfortable, but you should make the game uncomfortable if the status quo is bad for what the outcome you believe in. It should happen, right?
Sure. No, I agree with you. It's just, for me, I'd like to take the opportunity to use this conversation as a way to, run you through how I would help people understand the idea. And everything you said is true, and it's right. It's just, you've again complicated it very quickly, right? You went from, I think the simplest thing you said was when Zeus is playing Ornn and he sees that he's going to lose gold bot, he should stay top. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, as the individual, that's where it should start. That individual decision is what starts the complicated sequence where everyone else needs to play really well to dive them. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, I think in coaching, like, because you realize this because how long have you played League? You probably applied these concepts, 10 years ago?
Yeah. So, bro,
that's what I'm saying, right?
It was like, I remember like games in like season 2 and 3, and it's like, I remember where it's like you played, like I remember playing like Rumble into like Irelia matchups, and there are certain points where the matchup was just completely like over and Irelia's freezing, and I'm like, fuck this guy, I'm just gonna go mid, I'm gonna go bot, as this guy is just still freezing, and he's like, yeah, I'm winning lane, but it's like, fuck this guy. It's like this whole map is destroyed, so who cares, And it was like that was like the main point. I was like, I can only play Rumble into Aurelia if you guys have strong bot, because I will eventually come bot, because I can't at some point lane. He's gonna buy Witsend, he's gonna be useless in a fight, but I'm gonna be Rumble, we're gonna ult him on the turret, we're gonna have a good time. So this is like the same exact idea, right?
So exactly, and you know how you came to that conclusion. But the reality is, and this is kind of what I want to make the talk about, if that's okay with you, obviously.
Of course.
Information. How come I can count the amount of players that can do that on 2 hands? and no one else is learning. So you can do that. But if I were to point fingers at some LEC players, at some LCS players, they don't apply this. They just don't. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
That they don't.
100%. I think
why is that?
It's what separates. Like, it's like looking at the World Championship. It's like, or looking at the LEC as a whole, like Western players. There's just a couple of players that I consider elite, and those are the players that I consider that are capable of viewing the game through a more wide perspective, but at the same time simplified, because it's just about finding simple solutions to the status quo being outside of your favor, right? Like, let's say the G2 game where they played against How Life, it's like they know they're not going to win a fight, so Caps is just fucking trying to destroy the Nexus, like by being on site. It's like, it's a very simple thing. Oh, we can't fight, I'm going to be on site, and maybe we win 2v3, maybe 3v2, maybe we find a catch. Just let's not invite a situation where we are losing. But why? The way you asked it seems like you have an answer. Or do you want me to answer?
Why? I mean, I know that they don't learn. Like I said, it's apparently YamatoCannon was doing it in season 2. I was doing it in season 8. I was doing it in season 9 and season 10. I'm doing it in NA. People still don't learn. I'll be honest, I was doing it the whole year through in scrims. That's the thing. Like, people watch competitive games, watch it on stage, but you have to realize we scrim these professional players every single day of the working week, right? We have one day off, and every other day is either scrimming or playing an official match. And I'm doing these things to these people on cooldown, right? The whole year through. In TL I was doing it, and FlyQuest I'm doing it, and people still don't do it. They don't learn. And then they go to Worlds and they're like shocked. It's like, everyone's playing the game on the enemy team? How do we win? And what I'm trying to say is, like, we can bitch about how people are bad at this game and how, like, people just, they don't work, blah, blah, blah. I'm past that. Whatever. I don't care. What I do care about is trying to help the people. Guessing there's a lot of talented players that just need help. They need help getting these concepts phrased in a way to them that they can understand. That's what I think. Like, I genuinely think that if I were to sit down with Alfari for, I don't know, give me 2 weeks, he would get it. Irrelevant. He would get it. I wouldn't need more than that. I need 2 weeks just in case they're, like, particularly resilient. Give me a week if they are open to my ideas. But that's why when I mentioned, like, hey, like, you broke down these things and 50-50 really complicated things, and then 50, like, the other 50 was really simple things. And what I'm trying to say is, I think the best thing we can do is just explain the simple aspect, the individual decision making. That's my solution. Is you as an individual have to start the sequence because you need to realize this is happening. So when you're playing Ornn into that rumble, you need to convince your teammates that you need to make an action because you're going to bleed to death if you go back balling here. It's screwed. Why that happens is important, must be discussed, but sometimes it cannot be avoided. Better yet, agreeing to let the opponent do it to you, because if you group together and pressure the opposite side, your champion will provide significantly more value in every other stage of the game than that specific window, is strategy. That is including everybody else in your team. That is including what everybody is doing individually and coming together. And that's what I'm saying. The sequence has to start. And I think that the reason why I'm very successful at Worlds is, and in general I was very successful as a jungler as well, is because I was really specific with these moments where I could tell my teammate, here, you're screwed, but your champion outscales your opponent. So it's okay to be screwed here. You just need help to get out. How can you come to a decision that will give me an opportunity to help you? Or, and this is the part where I would do the work for them usually, how can I help you? This is the part I would always do for people. I would always tell them exactly what I can do for them. And I'd ask them, which is the best? Like, what's the best I can do for you? Because I have this option, and this option. Pick one.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll be like, oh, if you do this for me, I'm going to be in the best possible spot. And all right, let's do that then. So, for example, my bot lane can't lane anymore. Or, sorry, my bot lane's playing Tristana and Braum blind, and they get counterpicked by Draven Thresh. It's like the worst, one of the worst things that can happen to them. And I'll tell them, okay, at minute 3, I'm going to be ready to TP bot lane when the wave bounces. If they let the wave come to them, I'm ready to TP on the wave if they gank you. And if they tower dive you, I'm TPing instantly. So what I need you to
specific,
do is,
because I think that was a scrim in 2018.
it happened many times, is what I'm saying. We tried it all the time, and it wasn't just Draven Thresh. It was so many lanes that this was just like they could dive. So I say I'm picking a top laner that will have they'll crash the third wave, and I'm gonna one shot it. I'm gonna fast push the 3 waves and make sure. So what I need you guys to do is just back off a little bit, like at least Rekkles, back off. I'm gonna be ready to TP. Not exactly when the wave crashes, because I obviously need to crash my wave and then back off and base and then TP. Ideally. But I can communicate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to step 1, which is the easy part, which is, from my perspective, I can always TP on the 3rd wave and 4th wave. And then as soon as the 5th wave arrives, Brox is done with his full clear, and he'll be, in the best possible position to help. I mean, it wasn't always the case, right? Sometimes you'd want to contest crabs or whatever. But the point is he would be done with his full clear, and he'd take over responsibility of making sure that we're fine bot side. My TP window would die, but as it dies, it tied into our jungler full clearing into bot lane. And lo and behold, I'm on gankable top lane because I cheated recalled, and I'm ready to TP bot. And my bot lane got cover on waves 1, 2, well, not 1 and 2. 1 and 2, they have to lane. So if they couldn't lane 1 and 2, it's fucked. That's an unplayable matchup. But if wave 3 dive is a problem, I'll solve that problem for you. You may have to give them 1 or 2 creeps, though. And that's the thing. Like, that's where I told them what I can do for them. And we together came to the conclusion that the best thing we can do is lure them in to tower dive us. And if they're tower diving us, we aggressively target someone that we can kill. We don't actually just defend and back off. No. Braum is Q flashes the fucking guy, and we're aggressively going on the AD carry or whoever is over positioning. And then we just TP in to kill that guy, commit to killing him, and then we just recall. We're happy. We defended the dive. We don't need to kill everyone. We defended the dive and got a kill. We are ecstatic. That came from me telling my bot lane, I can be here every single game on this timing in these matchups. Boom, 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 boom. Right? So step 1, I told you what I can do for you. Ideally, you tell me what you need, but that's also really complicated. But my point is, these situations where you as an AD carry are saying, in this matchup, if I can somehow survive the 3rd wave dive, we're going to win the game, because I'm going to outscale them to shit. All I need is survive the dive, push out the wave, and then when I come back with my 2 daggers, or maybe 3 if we got a kill, we're going to be in a really great position in the game. That is step 1. This is what allowed me to tell Rekkles, hey, this is my solutions for you. What do you think is the best? And it was a staple play for Fnatic for 3 fucking years, bro.
Yeah.
3 years, and we farmed people. We farmed people on cooldown, and they were just clueless as to what to do. Because that's the thing. It was a good strategy, because the way to counter it was literally, there's only one way. Actually, contest me. Stop me from teleporting. Because if you don't stop me from teleporting, because I will, or match my teleport immediately and be ready for it, it's going to happen, and we're going to scale. And this is what I'm talking about. This whole sequence, this whole conversation, how long did this take? 15 minutes? I mean, obviously it's a bit of a time investment, but how much time do professional teams have to discuss these things and work on these things? I'd say a bit more than 15 minutes, no?
Yeah.
I think we're working in hours. And again, I'm shooting a little soccer punch there, or a cheap shot there, because it's disappointing that I feel like it has to be explained. But I just want to shout out Mythy, because I think he does the same thing. He really connects all people in the game. He makes sure that hey, your mid laner can't lane, but you have bot prowl, dude, move your fucking ass. Go bot lane, go let your mid laner base on any given wave, walk bot, catch whatever's left, boom. Your AD carry farms the mid wave, takes priority, hovers into your mid laner's side so he can't get dove, he catches everything, and now, instead of your mid laner recalling and dropping a cannon wave or dropping 6 CS, you drop 3 CS, and you have priority mid lane. Which is better than priority bot lane usually.
Yeah.
And you're still going to have priority bot lane because your fresh full health mid laner is walking into bot lane and the enemy bot lane hasn't based yet. So you translated 1 priority lane and a losing lane into 2 winning lanes. or like 2 priority lanes. Winning, a different topic. What is winning lane? What is not?
Yeah.
Complicated stuff. So the point is, you have 2 priority lanes out of 1 priority lane and a losing lane. G2 did this all the fucking time to me. I hated it. I would, anytime like, this is why people, by the way, always considered, or always saying like, oh, Wunder always beats me. It's like, dude, yeah, anytime I had a winning position, Cap shows up in my fucking lane and gives me AIDS. What am I supposed to do? Like, what do you want from me? Like, and don't get me wrong, a lot of our strategy in beating G2 was just me being happy with that, just me being satisfied with that and accepting, hey, this is just the way it is. It's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I made Cap's move to me. That means Rekkles is farming. So we have a good, like, Rekkles is very comfortable in the game, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
And I actually had to swallow my ego to come to that conclusion. And that's why a lot of times I didn't, and I would just didn't. I won't lie. It happened a lot. But I've become a bigger, the bigger man. I've grown as a person, and I do better now. But it goes to show it's not that hard once you realize and put the responsibility on the individual person. And that's what I would do as a coach. I would tell players, like, and I do this all the time. Whenever there's a draft discussion, I don't know if you remember that I did this. I don't even remember if I did it too often, but I would just go to someone and say, look, gun to your head, what are you locking in?
Yeah.
What are you locking in? I'm telling you right now, tomorrow you have to play a league game. Win or lose, your life's on the line. What are you locking in on this patch? And if you don't give me an answer, I'm opening your OPGG and I'm going down the list of champions. And at some point, you're going to have to tell me I play this champion because I think it's good. Because if, you know what I mean? Like, you can play a champion because you think it's good. You can play a champion because you need to practice it. And you can play a champion because it's fun. These are the 3 options you have, okay?
Yeah.
So at some point, I'll find something you think is good. And you think, and then at that point, it's a discussion of what you think is the best chance to win. And if you need to go through that entire discussion with me, I will. I don't mind. I want to finalize this statement by saying I am hard to work with. People are saying, oh, he's hard to work with. Yeah, you're goddamn fucking right. I make you fucking work. I make you actually put in the effort to think, to put in the games. I realize this. I'm like, oh, I'm not hard to work with. What are people talking about? I realize that. Yeah, I'm hard to work with because no one else is making these fuckers work. What I'm speaking of with you right now, that is work. To play a champion, to speak with your teammates about what you can do, what you cannot do, what's the best way for you to win the game, what's the worst way for you to conduct yourself in the game. This is hard work because you have to not only be able to play the champions in the case where when you're in those winning positions, have the mechanics to actually execute and do that, you also have to be able to argue against your teammates and tell them, hey, here, you're putting me in a bad situation. Fuck you. Stop doing that. Okay, maybe don't say fuck you, but sometimes you have to.
This
is hard. It's hard. And sorry to cut you off. That's what I make my teammates do. And if they don't do it, I do it for them. I'm literally there, and I'm getting mad at them because they're not doing it. I'm like, why the fuck aren't you telling? Like, I was like, I got mad at Rekkles in season 8. I remember this. I've told the story a few times because he wouldn't tell Hilly and Broxo what he needed, and he was just like, oh, like, they're really good players. You guys didn't need me. You played the whole split without me. You played through caps. It shouldn't be necessary. Like, I'm assuming that they know what's going on, and they're choosing an option that's better.
Yeah,
and I'm like, dude, even if that's the case, it is your responsibility to tell people what's going on in your game and tell them, like, hey, this is going on. I'm going to get dove here. Can you guys help me or not? You need to consistently help your teammates help you. That's what I want to drive home. Help people help you. And when you do that, and you tell people, hey, I can do this for you. Or if you could do this for me, that would be huge. That's when those teams level up. And I want to say that I can name very few players that could actually convince other people in their team to do this too. And from the people that I know and work with, I would say, just to give some names because everyone loves the drama, everyone loves the discussion, I would say Perks, Caps, Mithy. And honestly, that's kind of it. These are the people that do it every year consistently. Maybe there's some players that do it sometimes. Maybe there's some players that, But I can tell you this much. They're the names that you see at the top every year because they know how to do this. They know how to convince other people asking for help is a good thing and how to ask for help. Thank you for listening to my rant. I really wanted to get this across, and I wanted to take the opportunity to say it here because it's something I'm really passionate about. It's why the whole coaching thing, like, he'll be a really good coach. Maybe. It's why I'm interested in coaching. But we'll get into that once you get to speak your mind on this topic.
Yeah, I feel, in my mind, I think it's like coming back to the initial question of why, because when you're saying this to me, this is very like straightforward, right? It's like making sure that you understand and everybody in your team understands why you lock in a certain champions and the conditions that you will carry the game in, and how, like, if that is understood by everybody, everyone's going to, like, it's like I don't know if you've seen the image of basically there's a pot in the middle of soup and everyone's eating with these long wooden spoons where basically you can't really feed yourself with them. And then on one picture, there's like a bunch of people using these long wooden spoons trying to feed themselves, and they're basically just burning themselves and they can't feed themselves. And then on the other image is the harmony, where people realize simply that they just need to use the spoon to feed the person on the other side of the table. I think that to bring it back in terms of why people are missing this. I think it's often tied in people's approach in terms of how they choose their champions in the first place. I think often people play champions for very surface level reasons. I think the easiest example for those who watch to tie it into is like Lucian Nami didn't find any success in the West for basically in that year. It's like us in Fnatic 2022, we played it a lot, but everybody else was kind of meh on it because people saw other people play it. They could lane well with Lucian Nami, but they had zero understanding of how to actually like drive the game in a way to actually win with Lucian Nami. Like if we're picking it every game, what are the conditions that we need? It's like, it's like Absolute was saying, I need to have space to dash on enemy AD perma. If I don't have the space, I'm going to be weaker on the dragon fights. I need to marinate them. I need to isolate them, marinate them, and I need to play. So it was like, so we're going to pick a jungle that can invest time and just be around mid to make sure that we set up vision around mid so you can perma dash and we're going to play it that way. And then it's like everyone was in tune in that idea. It's like, when I have Lucian Nami, our Lucian wants to dash on the mid wave. So if I have free time, I can go into mid. I know it's going to lead into good things because Lucian Nami can dash. And this was like the Gale Force Nami with the OP first strike and all that good jazz. And it's like these ideas are very, very simple and straightforward. But I feel like in terms of people picking champions, it's always like, I'm picking this champion because it's a good matchup into this champion. It's like you have a very, very unique champion pool. It's tied into... the way I understand it, it's tied into an identity that you feel is going to fit in the circumstance that you have put yourself in the context of your team the most. Right? It's like when you played on the Fnatic roster 2018, 2019, I remember you had like your GP. It's like you were doing making sure that you crashed the wave no matter what, right? So you didn't get like level 3 ganked unless it was like a Predator Gragas or some shit. But it's like you had a very, very it's a very set rules in terms of what your team would thrive under. And I think that most players fall under the umbrella of, I should win my lane and then that's it. It's like I pick my champ because I want to be strong in lane. Everyone else is playing it, so I'm going to be playing it. But the condition of what makes the team identity is lost upon this player because people are just focusing on the same repetitive details rather than allowing themselves to be a little bit uncomfortable and explore a little bit deeper. It's like recognizing, these are the strongest champs we're playing. These are the strongest players. How do we make them thrive? And let's adjust ourselves to that. Right? I feel like this is the answer to why. I think people don't understand why they are picking certain champions. And I think that just because of how the process of improvement is for most players in terms of how they become pro, it's very solo queue spam into ERLs. There's not that influence. And even when they are watching VODs, it's like in the examples that you mentioned, I'm sure that we can easily explain the examples like the Zeus example. Or the wave is so pushing bot and bot, so he wants to pressure bot. I think most pro players, most LEC players are going to be like, that makes a lot of sense. But the idea of recognizing this real time requires you to be in tune with those ideas because it's something that is actively happening. It's like we can explain that exact sequence and people can look at that exact moments. Like, I can play it like Zeus and be there on top because top bot wave is stacking. But recognizing that real time and seeing the cost benefit analysis and allowing yourself to look beyond what you always do, I think that is where the difficulty lies. Because I remember it's like when I worked with Splice in 2016, it was like 5 rookies, right? It's like 5 rookies. It's like the support Nisbet before we replace them with Mickey. It's like 5 rookies. It's like, I remember the first game, I was like, I just want to understand how you guys think. So I will not say anything in draft. I just want to see how you guys think. And it was like the most rigid thing ever. It's like, it's like very, very basic level bullshit. It's like, oh guys, our team comp is lacking engage. Let's pick engage. Let's pick Malphite here. And it's like, it was very, it's like, when someone on Twitch just writes your team comp and says, do you think, Bwipo, this is a good team comp? And you're like, bro, I don't even know the context. What are we playing against? What's happening here? It's like, when are we picking what? It's like, is this a good team comp? Orianna, Malphite? It's like, it was basically at that level. And it's like, my philosophy was, it's like, instead of me giving you the solution, I'd rather help you guys understand how to think. Because you need to know how to learn, and you need to learn how to see beyond what you're doing. It's like Wundo was really, really good at this because he was always challenging what was said. It's like whenever there's a player that is like actively challenging and is pushing because he is allowing his idea to be in the open, and either he is right and is moving people in the right direction, or he's wrong and he is going to be then corrected in moving in that right direction. And I feel like often players are afraid to take that step just because they are used to something. And I think it just begins in ERLs. And I think that, like in your case, you had a very, very fortunate opportunity, right? Joining Fnatic and being able to view everything from outside. But do you feel like you carried this state of mind before you joined Fnatic, or I imagine this is something that you've reflected on over a long period of time, right?
I've always had this mindset, actually. Even when I was an amateur player with my teammates, back in amateur, I had this mid laner. I thought he was really good, actually. I'm pretty sure he would have played in LEC, and he would have been quite good if he wanted to, but he decided to live a normal life, which is respectable.
Yeah.
I always wanted him to get like the picks that he was best on. I always wanted my teammates to get the champions they were best on, because it was just like, it just makes sense. I want to get the champions I'm best on too.
Yeah.
And then when I judged my teammates and myself, I would just be honest, like, should I pick the champion first? Like, should I secure my comfort, my best champions first, or should they? I'll give you an example. 2018, 2019, I first three'd my top laner most of the time. Because the reality was, if you gave Rekkles a good 4-5 angle, you just win the game. Now, there were metas where he would just lock in Tristana like blind and shit on people, but that was rather uncommon compared to at least the alternative metas. And that's really just like, I don't know, is that like such a shocking revelation? Is that like such a crazy way to view things? I don't think so. I to me, it's crazy that people are so selfish. It's like, it's the same thing actually. I think back to season 3, like when I was first picked and someone, usually people would be like, I want mid because mid's the most fun, right? I would just ask whoever's best at the role, like who can play the role, who's worse at the other roles, I should say. That's always the idea I had. Like, I never wanted a guy that could only play mid lane or was best at mid lane to play support, because it's just like, dude, why? It doesn't make sense. Like, your team is the sum of its whole parts. Your weakest link, like, your team is as strong as your weakest link, right? That's what people say, and it's true. It's just the way it is. So if your weakest link, which there is going to be one, okay? That's a reality. You can't have, philosophically speaking, someone that isn't the weakest link. Someone always has to be. Now, you can have 5 really strong links in that team.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be the weakest. That is a reality. Think of T1. they have a weakest link. You know, I like my head on my shoulder, so I won't point out who I think it is, but it doesn't matter. They exist. Gen G had a weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
Dom on 2020 had a weakest link. I think I've made my point pretty clear there. The question is, what are you going to do about it? And so many teams are like, well, our weakest link, fuck that guy. We're going to let him go 4-5 and pick some trash, or like something like whatever, similar to what he's good at, right? That's usually the philosophy, unironically. Where it's just like, dude, your best players should probably be the ones digging deep. Just makes sense that way. Like, let me put it this way. You go to the army and you have a team of 5 individuals, and 2 of them can shoot any gun, and they are just excellent all across the board. They are just, absolutely goated.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them can use specific weapons really well and then suck at everything else. And then there's one guy that just kind of sucks. How do you distribute the weapons, right? Obviously, you secure the weapons for the guys that are only good with a specific weapon. If they can perform under specific circumstances, you should secure those circumstances immediately. Then you weigh our worst performer to our best performer. How much is he going to drag down the rest of the team if we let him go, like if we give him the worst weapon? Compared to how hard our best performer is going to carry him if we give them the best tools. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. It's not hard. That's hard. Okay, let me wrong. Evaluating that's hard. I won't lie. You have to look at a million statistics. You have to go through so many exercises, thought exercises, drafts, whatever it may be. That problem solving is hard because it includes everyone else. But my point is the fundamental strategy, it's simple. Like, anyone can come to this conclusion. And that's what I'm saying, is like people get lost in the sauce. They don't even realize this. And don't get me wrong, I understand why. Like in the past, I would just laugh at them. I also wouldn't care because, I was always really happy with my team being great and that was good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 things happened. 1, I went to TL and I didn't do what I'm speaking of. I didn't help people. I just sat there and I was an NPC and I lost in peace. And I hated that. And, when I listed the 3 individuals that I think do this consistently, I didn't list myself for this reason because I didn't do it in TL. It's that simple. If I did, I would have happily glazed myself there, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So, it's the reality. I didn't do it consistently. I spent a whole year in TL not doing shit for that team. I was just a player that would go on stage and play his game. And if it was good, I was great. And if it was bad, I was shit. And that is just pathetic. With that out of the way, I personally believe simplicity is the way. First, get people on the same page, right? That's what everyone says. Your team should be on the same page. But I think it takes a bit more. And that brings me to why would I tell everyone else this? But why don't I want my team to be the best? I break it down in 2 reasons. 1, unfortunately, you need to do well at Worlds for your region to be liked and for people to want to watch your region. You need to be good at the game too. And it appears people struggle with both of those things. So I'm inclined to help them because I want the game to do well. I love League of Legends. I'd love to be able to keep doing this for another 20 years. I really do. And when left to their own devices, people are not so interested in what happens in the LEC even, which is shocking to me. I feel like the blueprint was there, everything was set up. But somehow in the LEC is not fun to watch anymore, is what I hear. I don't blame them, I don't watch it either. But then again, I'm not big on watching. And the other thing is, because I genuinely believe it makes me a better player. I think when you're in a region like an A, and this is why I've advocated for FlyQuest to promote CertE all the time, and I will keep advocating for it whenever possible. I think having a substitute that competes with you in a region where it's hard to find the highest level of competition keeps you honest. So, for example, me and Soaz, if I saw Soaz avoid doing something I was doing consistently, that was suspicious. Now, either he didn't agree with that being the best way to play, right? Or he thought it was a bad decision. Usually one of those 2, right?
Yeah.
Or a third was like he doesn't know how to execute it, right? Other way around could be too. Like maybe he doesn't feel comfortable in this position, playing that situation out that way. But most of the time it's because he disagreed with me on what the best way to play the game was. And that would always give me perspective of like, so he doesn't feel the need to do this. Why is that? And me asking that question and getting that like kind of into perspective so frequently really helped, in my opinion, with understanding what I should be doing and what I should not be doing. Because it's really easy, and you've probably heard this a million times, right? It's really easy for people to be like, oh, it's so easy to get bad habits. I'm playing against bad players. I just want to punish them. Blah, blah, blah. When you're doing that consistently, and you're consistently falling into that bad habit, and you watch someone play that never does that, and he slowly but surely has more success than you in scrims because you're doing something you're not supposed to and he avoids it. Nothing that gives you a kick in the ass faster than that. I can tell you from experience. It makes you instantly realize, whoa, what the fuck am I doing, right? Like, this guy never does this and he's winning every game. Maybe that's the problem. And it might not be. It might be something else. But the fact of the matter is you start having a devil's advocate and you start playing it for yourself because you realize there's more than one way to win the game.
I think that just that individual attention as well just goes such a long way. Like I know also from my experience, it's like when you're alone coaching a group of 5 players, it's like it's very, very different if I just watch one player as a hawk, because then I see everything that he does. And then you don't get away with any bullshit. But under the guise of looking at 5 players and just looking at like the holistic view of the game and looking at like major points in terms of how the group plays together, there's a lot of bullshit that just kind of people get by with, you know? And I think that individual, like whether it's an individual coach that just is hired to specifically helping you, or having a substitute, as you mentioned, I think that goes such a long way, because it's like if you allow your practice to become mundane and boring and repetitive and something that you just clock in and clock out of, which can happen, right? If you're playing in weaker regions, that's like a part of the poison, right? But I think that, as you mentioned, it's like if someone is holding you accountable and you feel that person breathe down your neck, it's like if you fall under that scrutiny, I think that what you were holding on to was not honest in the first place. You know, it's like, so some players are very like uncomfortable with that thought, but I think that that's a deeper rooted issue that you really shouldn't be uncomfortable with, because your effort is just being put on display in a very, very like harsh, but also the honest and best manner, right? I think that's super, super important. Like we spoke to Nooktak, right? It's like me and Dom spoke to the Nook, and it's like he did mention that like working with such a extended group, like in terms of the coaching staff, having people, it's like Mebdi holding Busio accountable, and it's like looking at everything that he did and just hammering down all the details. It's like the amount of growth you can do when you just focus on one person is really, really extreme. It's like it goes such a long way.
I agree with you. To add on to what you're saying, to give you real examples of what happened this year, for example, we would shit on 100 Thieves like absolutely, like it was unplayable for them every single scrim. Like they couldn't breathe. So what did we do to keep the games exciting? We would lock in Nunu. Until we realized, hey, this champ's not bad. Every team that was shit, we just Nunu them. It's like, obviously everyone starts giggling, you know? It's like, it's Nunu, oh lol. Turns out Nunu is pretty good.
Nice.
Example number 1. Example number 2, the tempo terrorist. There's always, whenever a team does well, like this mini game, like who is the tempo terrorist, right? You need to find the tempo terrorist if you want to get out of the rut, right? Usually a team does really well and then suddenly they start underperforming. And then like they're like in how do I say this? They're in tempo purgatory, where it's like they're clearly like they set up things good, but they don't win the game. Like they don't actually like progress the game and win the game as a team. Like something random has to happen for this team to actually win. And that's what I call tempo purgatory, because there's a tempo terrorist. Question is, can they find who it is? And sometimes there's multiple different people depending on the game. So that was what makes it really difficult to do. But that's another fun mini game you can do as a team. Everyone reviews the game. It's like, all right, guys, like let's find a tempo terrorist. Who terrorized our tempo this game? Why can't we contest this dragon? Why can't we be here to contest this vision? Why can't we be here? Who was it? And then having your players kind of take an individual responsibility, I think is a great way to also bond with each other and laugh about it. Because I think joy is so powerful. For me, joy is what makes me want to keep trying. Joy is what makes me, especially when I lose 3-2 to a great team, joy is what makes me get back up and say, you know what, fuck it, let's do it again. I loved the whole process. If I had no joy in what I did, I could not. That's why I get when a lot of professional players want to give up and they're just like, fuck this. I worked so hard to get so high and I couldn't make, we couldn't cut it, so I'd rather cash out and make money than try again. I guarantee you, many players stopped trying to be the best in the world because of the stop process. They would rather earn the money than try again and disappoint. And I would be one of them if I didn't have so much joy doing it. I find so much more joy in actively progressing as a team, pushing my team to do better and really, being hard to work with. I love it. I love the feeling I get when my teammates actually deliver on what I think they can do. And when they even tell me, like, hey, man, like, I can't do this. Like, you're asking too much of me. It's like, okay, help me find a solution of what we can do together. These two outcomes for me are like crack. We're on the sack now, so yeah, they're like crack.
Yeah.
I fucking love this shit. I live for it. I go to the office hoping I can have an opportunity to confront someone and achieve this result with them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm a cunt about it. Like sometimes, when I'm emotional after playing, I'm a huge cunt about it. Like I 100% have walked out of scrims and been like, so I'm absolutely cancer fed. I destroyed my lane opponent. He couldn't play the game, and I can't win the game. I can't go here and fight. I can't go there and fight. I can't go anywhere and fight. Why the fuck is that? I've walked into the review room many times. Obviously, the right way to review. The right way. I said the wrong way to view things and the wrong way to review. But I'm human. Yeah. I apologize after cooling down. And that's what I'm saying. Joy is so important to me. Actually, why I think G2 didn't make it 2 years in a row is, in my opinion, lack of joy. Obviously, I don't know for sure. I don't know them well enough. This is just from my perspective. I know G2 back in the day, 2019, 2020, they had so much joy, man. Like, they fucking loved that shit. Whenever something went wrong, like they could laugh it off and come back and like do better. And I really believe that joy was a huge part of that team's success. And in general, most team success. Actually, I'm willing to say that the majority of teams that have been successful have had a very fair share amount of joy. I don't know for sure. It's a theory I have.
I would add a layer though. I think it's specifically like having joy doing what needs to be done. Right? It's like because. I think that especially with that 2019 G2 roster, it's like from speaking to all of them, it's like they really enjoyed like engaging with each other about the game. Like when there was an issue about how they played, like people weren't willing to like let that go.
Yeah,
it's like,
makes sense. Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, we're doing this bad. I'm just gonna CPA. It's like, oh, I can't. This can't be the case, bro. I can't. Bro, we're stuck at mid jungle. We're gonna sit and talk about this shit until our hands bleed. It's like we're going to commit to it. Because I think it ties to what you say. It's like the moment your day-to-day life, especially with how many hours you put into the game, because it's the only way to compete. I think like whenever anyone says it's like work-life balance, it's like, no, it's like when you compete, it's like it's your life. It's like everything else that you do outside of League is to supplement League. It's like your off day, the only time you are resting is because you need to rest to make your next day better. That's when you're resting and you're cooling off. Otherwise, you're playing solo queue and you're using the energy that you have, etc. But it's like the moment the scrimming becomes tiring. It's like and it's boring and it's drag. This is very, very dangerous. So I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100% in terms of it's like knowing that what you do is important and seeing opportunities where some other players might see none. Because a lot of players, they think they are doing everything they can, and then when they extend their hand and no one is ready to like grab onto it in that moment, they give up. It's like that's like the common trend, right? It's like, and in their mind, they've done their part, but there's always more that you can do, right? And I tie that into what you said about like your regret in terms of your Team Liquid. Like you look back at that and you think about what could I have done different to connect with my teammates, to make Hansama play better or push him forward. It's like what did he need to become the player that he was in 2021 or was in 2023? Right? And I think that's where the disconnect lies. Right? It's like I think a lot of players, they think they are doing their part and they are waiting for things to happen. And sometimes that's correct, right? But then it means it's correct because you see that the group is engaging in the right conversations. But if things are not moving, this is where you need to take the chance to do so. But something that I wanted to add to this, especially like big conversations like GMing, coaching, and so forth, I think like there's been so many circumstances where coaches and GMs are so afraid of players that are not going to accept things being bad. It's like you say that you're difficult to work with, right? But it's like what happened to Perks and Team Heretics. Like I know Perks was just trying to push the team forward and was confrontational. And when he didn't like what the coaches said in terms of how the game should be played or something, and he felt like the team was restricted in the way they should play because of simplification or something else, and he challenges that. I know these type of players. I like these are the players I love to work with. It's like if I say something that is wrong and a player challenges me, I invite it because I want to think better. I want to know better. But I know there's a lot of coaches and GMs as well that are very, very like when players challenge the process of the team, then they see it as an attack on their own ego. And they are afraid of the position that they are in. Like another example, right, is like Jizuke was a player together with Impact. It's like when he played in North America, it's like he was told to practice a certain way. It's like they didn't want him to trade actively. They didn't want him to push for 2v2s. He didn't want to pull like jungle attention. It was like just farm your minions and don't create volatility. And it's like from Jizuke's point of view, it's like, well, it's like, I want to punish this mistake. It's like, I have the information here. So why did I pick this champ? I can create an opportunity here and then I can maybe carry the game, something like this. And I know that eventually, it's like in the last split that Jizuki played, he was all pro mid and he had like issues with the jungle situation because he liked playing with contracts, but the coaches liked Svenskeren because he was more bought into the idea of how the coaches wanted to play. And he wasn't happy with how the team was playing because he believed that the team could be better. But in that process, the coaches were like, they felt challenged and they were afraid to argue or make a point. That a word spread in the LCS that he was difficult to work with. But it's like you need to be able to challenge and move the team forward. It's like that's a part of players that make teams great. Because like when I work with Jizuke, I gave him that freedom because I trusted him. It's like he would tell me things about like I think 2018. I think that we were like the best at like diving top on the stacking waves. Yeah, I think in terms of like how we side laned and it's like how we push side. Like we basically like we were very unique in that way.
Thanks for that.
We were diving Bwipo. That was the plan when he subbed in for Soaz, but we only go one game.
One step before that, yeah.
But it's like I gave him that freedom because he could teach me something, and he did things with a very, very thorough thought process, and also he could communicate these ideas to everybody else, and it made sense. If in that moment like that challenged my view of the game and I would have resisted it, I would have just held this player back so much. When in reality, it's like in that exploration that you do together, that is where, you unlock a player completely. Because like we mentioned T1, right? It's like when you mentioned T1, when you mentioned like every team has a weak link, right? It's like there are conditions where these players are not good under. And that's almost true for most players. It's like Chovy was regarded as the best player coming into the World Championship, but I think the main criticism towards him is like he's very, very timid in how he chooses his champions. That's like my main criticism towards him. It's like if you are the best player on your team together with like Canyon, it's like looking at MSI how they played. It's like He was the only one that could play like Corki and Aurelion Sol. And when they banned shit, they were willing. He went so far to pick Yon, and they picked Yon and Karthus. And then it's like, yeah, these are the players that should be doing this. And then the opposite comes to the World Championship, and it's like Chovy is just picking Ari. And it's like, Ari is like, to some degree, you can do things, but you're also very limited. And this is just what he does, right? It's like, he's a great player, but you have certain limitations that you play under. And the same thing, I think, can be said for like T1 players. It's like, I think, like an example is Korea suffered in like melee versus melee super matchups the entire year. It's like his Braum games were probably like the worst ones. And it's like his team is like, oh, what can we do to make this player play what he's good at? Because when he does, he wins games. It's like he played Pyke and Bard and like fucking Renata Blind, right? It's like he was an outlier, but they set him up for success. And it's like they have a very, very good view of what circumstances their players thrive under because they work together for such a long time. But I think the nuance in that, it's like understanding where players are good and tying your ideas to players that are strong enough to get you wins. That simple idea, I have always, like ever since I worked with you, this simple idea has always been like the overarching like goal of anything that I worked with, or how I view teams from outside too, because it's very, very clear when it's lacking. It is simple as a process, but you just need to be like, I think if there's anything that we would want people to be aware of if they are listening to this, is that you need to actively try to connect on these points. And in that process, you will learn so much. It's like you will fail, but maybe you will learn something about your teammate. Maybe you learn something about yourself, but just try. Don't let it be.
Yeah.
Like, just don't let things be. Like, that's the worst thing you can do. It's like if you're playing your champ and you're clocking in from 9 to 5 and you just let things be, that is the worst thing possible. But as I mentioned before, it's like the danger, in a sense, is that there are definitely some coaches and GMs that really want you to stay in line and don't do shit. And that's the part that pains me a lot. Him?
No, I agree with you. I think a player that comes to mind for me after speaking to him is actually Adam, where I think he has the right intentions. I think the execution maybe could be better. I didn't speak to him specifically about how he did it, but I think he has a really bad reputation about being someone that gets really upset, and like I think that's because he doesn't know how to create those discussions meaningfully. But I think he tries to push his team forward. It's just I think there's an issue in the communication there, from his end maybe, or maybe how it's received. I'm not sure, but that's what I noticed speaking to him. And I wanted to mention, like I brought up, I think G2 has a lack of joy in what they do. I could be wrong, you know. I like to say this always. I reserve the right to change my mind.
Yeah.
If you give me good reasons to change my mind, I will. I'm not married.
Everyone should have this right, man. Everyone should have this right. But in this day and age, you say things once, it's your opinion for the rest of time, you know?
If I could explain what they do to make sure that all their players are happy all the time and like can bring that joy into that daily life. Because the thing is we've spoken about these basic concepts, but when shit gets tough, and you are pissed, and the other guy's probably pissed too, because you've gotten shit on by these Asian teams every matchup, both sides, and it's like no matter what you draft, you just fucking lose, and you need to find out why that is, because otherwise you're just going to lose. And there's plenty of teams that do that, you know, they're just like, yeah, fuck it, like let's just lose in peace. But there's a lot of teams that don't want to do that, and I believe you need joy to get through that. That's my experience. I think you need to be able to laugh it off. I think that's highly important. I just think that maybe they have joy, they just didn't have enough of that to push through those tough times. I could be wrong, but that's the first thing. The other thing actually I find interesting about G2 and the discussion we have is I think that Caps has only played with Jankos that was able to kind of do what we're talking about here when it comes to jungle, at least at a very high level, like a very high level. Being able to tell someone what you can do and can't do at a very high level is much different from, you know, the basic stuff. What I'm trying to say, you know, like being able to sequence how you clear your camps into mid lane, and then how that influences the rest of the lanes and how you can use that, and this kind of really in-depth approach. I think Jankos is probably the only jungler that has been able to do that for him, and I think it's why he was considered to be one of the actual best mid laners in the world at that time. I don't think that's been true for Broxa or Yike. Who else was there? I think that's it, right? These three?
That's it, yeah. I'm trying to remember if there was a point in time where Amazing played or if Broxa and Caps got subbed in together at the time, but this was such a short period that...
international, yeah.
Yeah. This was the 2017.
Yeah, maybe you're right, actually. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. But
that was no international, right?
I'm not sure, actually.
No. It was 2017 was a rough year for. Actually, they
made it to Worlds.
They made it to Worlds and they qualified 2-4 somehow out of their group. Yeah. But that was with Broxa, right? That was with Broxa. Yeah. So.
But anyway, even domestically speaking, the reason I bring it up is because they're getting Skumond. I don't know if you've heard of him or whatever, but it'd be interesting to see if he can actually do that. And if he doesn't, I hope they push him for Caps' sake, because it makes me really sad. More than anything, the message that I really wanted to send with this Worlds was actually to my old teammates, Hilly and Rekkles. I wanted to show them, like, hey, what I'm doing right now, same thing we used to do, bros. And if I can still do it, I know for a damn fact you guys can too, because you've always been better than me. So I really hope, I really, really hope that they can find the motivation to push everyone else, because it's been really tough. I got really angry on stream because when he was trying to push and he was trying to make people talk about what they can do, and when he disputed hey, you're telling me you can't do this, but I know you can because I've seen my top laner in the past do it, or I've seen my mid laner in the past do it, so you just don't want to, or you don't want to practice to get there. He doesn't say this, right? But that's what I'm saying. It's that moment where it's you have to accept that your teammate doesn't want to do it because it's possible. You've played with people that have done it in front of you, scrim after scrim after scrim, and you have someone telling him that he can't do it. How do you take that as anything but bullshit, right? It's I've seen it. And I think a lot of pros, they falter there. They falter saying, well, I worked with someone that did it every game, so either you're going to explain to me why you can't in a way that I understand, or you're going to start practicing and do it because I want to see this in my game, or something similar. I think a lot of pros just give up there, and that's hard to do. That's also, like I said, why I'm hard to work with, because I bring this up. It's well, I used to play with this guy, and he was doing it every game, so if you're not going to explain, well, why? How? It doesn't make sense. And that's uncomfortable as fuck. It's uncomfortable for me too. But I think you need joy to come out of those conversations in a way that is healthy for everyone. Because the reality is we are all young adults. Most of us are absolutely terrible at social skills. And that's why you need joy. Because you need to be able to come through those moments and just slap each other on the shoulder and be like, holy shit, we are, aren't we? Okay, maybe you want to cut off that word. I don't know. Up to you. But you want to be able to
Life can make a note of it. You bleep it or something. It's so good.
I don't mind. But that's how I used to. That's how I talk with my teammates. It's holy shit. Not in a bad way. Just wow. It's kind of stupid how dumb we are socially.
Yeah.
And being able to laugh about that and share a good moment together, I think it goes a very, very long way. Which is why I brought up Joy, which is, again, a little bit of criticism towards G2 just for the drama. I like it. Why not? It's getting a bit stale, so I want to add it there. But also, some expectations onto Skumond as well as the G2 coaching staff. I want to see Caps be the undisputed best mid laner in Europe in all ways, and he hasn't been able to display that, in my opinion. He's had to rely on carrying the game late game with OP champions because I think that he wasn't facilitated by Yike, and I think that is a damn shame. He was also one of my old teammates, and I know he can be insane. I know Rekkles can be, and I know Hilly can be. It's a fact. It's not an opinion. Same thing for Perks, by the way. Wonder, these players, Yankos, if they want to, I'm sure they can. I just think that they've been poisoned by the system, by people, by this, it's a systematic poisoning of getting conditioned to being fine with doing less.
Yeah.
I was poisoned too. It took me months of depression to actually realize that was what was happening. I kept asking myself, why didn't I get picked up in 2023? The reason is people are fucking clueless. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know how to win. They don't know what it takes to be the best in the world. They think they know. Well, they know how to be good. And there's nothing wrong with being good. You can be satisfied with being good. But I can tell you, every single one of the players I just named knows what it takes to be great.
100%.
And I'm telling you right now, great is the enemy of good. Which is why I think once those teams split apart, they were poisoned. Because all these people that are satisfied being good choked out the greatness. I really believe that. Obviously, maybe some of them are just like, fuck it, I don't want to try as hard. I don't know for sure. Whether it was that or what I'm saying, I don't know. In my case, I genuinely believe I was in an environment where greatness was not the goal. Goodness was. And I'm not saying that that's an intention issue. That was just a systematic problem we had in Team Liquid. This was just an issue from the top down, in my opinion. Don't really want to get into it too much because bygones are bygones, but that is my stance. And like I mentioned, I want the league to do great. I want people to watch LEC. I want them to watch LCS. Because I'd like to keep doing this professionally for a long time.
Yeah. No,
so
for
I don't
sure.
mind sharing my secrets. I know for a fact that I'm going to put in more hustle than those motherfuckers will. And if someone is better than me, tell you what, I named you like 5 or 6 players that are better than me. There's plenty of people that are better than me in this game, bro. Like, hell, at World Championship, there's like fucking 25, 30, 40 people that are better than me at the game. I take that as an opportunity. I love it when I'm playing against players that are better than me because it means that I can strive to be up there with them.
Yeah. No, what you said, greatness is the enemy of good. I think this is. I think it at least for me with so much experience. I think this it echoed through everything that I have gone through. You know, it truly like echoes through it because I do think in a lot of cases it's driven by fear. It's driven by ego, driven by complacency. And when the system is like that, you are going to be taking risks when you try to push your team forward a certain way. It's like you are going to be taking risks because you are going against the grain. But it is necessary if the path that you're on, it's like your boat is rowing in a certain direction. If you know that direction is wrong, it's like you're going to try to paddle in the other direction, and then either that is going to make sense in the way you communicate it or not, and you're going to be seen as the enemy in the group, right? 100%. And I think it's like the circumstances you mentioned before, like with perks and so forth, is definitely like one of those moments. I think with Hilly in particular, it's like this is a player. I think that like we both work with Hilly and we believe in Hilly. It's like we trust Hilly and we know that if we give him the circumstance to thrive in, he will give back like tenfold. I think that I think he's the type of person that needs someone like in his corner, to really like fight for him. And like I think 2021, like 2020, 2021, like I think that he was so fucking like insane. Like even 2019, 2020, like 2018 as well. Like these were such insane years because he always had people in his corner. I think it's like when you when you jungled and Upset, it's like Upset was just like all the details that Hilly wants to review. Like for some people that's like tiring. It's like, what is he saying? Like this doesn't matter. But it's like when you appreciate what Hilly can bring to the table and it feels that you back him up in game, it's like then it's like beauty just comes through. And it's like the joy thing is such a strange thing because I think in a lot of cases especially in esports, because what you mentioned is like socially, like players are like pretty like inept. It's like they came to the spot they are in because they are playing video games all day. It's like is definitely like the main challenge. And it's like some players just have, like some people just have fun together. And there's definitely like characters that are like very, very good for group environments. I think like BB comes across as like the type of person that is like willing to joke with people and puts a lot of effort into like bonding with people because he, I think naturally he just does that. But I think that when, like Kazi said himself, it's like, I will find out more about if I should play with the player from going out to party with him than playing a couple of tryouts with him. That was like the conclusion was that, if Kazi is trying out for a team, he should go out party with the guys because if they are vibing off of things, it's like the day-to-day work life is just going to be so much easier. But I think like when you take the more mature aspect of it, it's like if you want to be always effective in this, and you always want to, find this even with people that you might find disagreeable. I think it always comes down to trusting and holding on to a trust that the player that you are working with is actively trying to become the best in his own way. Because with the moment you stop believing in that, it's like it poisons everything. It poisons the practice. It poisons everything that you do because that respect needs to be maintained at all cost. And sometimes the other person can do his best to break that because that definitely happens too. But it's like I remember the advice that I've told players that have worked with players that necessarily don't deserve to be in the position they're in because sometimes that's the case. But you need to work in a way where eventually you're going to be working with the people that you deserve to be working with. It's like eventually you're going to be surrounded, if everything is just in the system, that you're going to be surrounded by people that are going to work the same way you do. So if you're going to allow yourself to work worse because of people around you working worse, you are the same. You are exactly the same because they have been poisoned and you're allowing yourself to be poisoned too.
I agree. The results speak for themselves. I won't. That's all I'll say. The results speak for themselves. I won't bring them up. Someone in the comment section will for me. Someone will argue the good fight for me. I've come to understand that. For me, it doesn't really. I don't want to discuss semantics I've already gone over. I actually realize a lot of people tell me that I don't listen in arguments about League, and it's like I realize, yeah, you're right. I don't listen. Because from my perspective, I know what you're thinking. And I get that you want to hear that. Like, you want to be able to explain yourself. I get it. Like a lot of pros want to do that. They're like, yeah, but this isn't. I'm like, yeah, I know. I know.
Don't you think that you lose out by thinking too far ahead? It's like,
I definitely do.
Because it's like I think that there is an essence of beauty in thinking that everyone can teach you something. Because in the end, at worst, it makes you like make sure that your ideas are right because they need to be on your sleeve, right? Because like sometimes taking things for granted is can be dangerous. It's like, I know this because this is right, and I've known it for a very long time. But you need to hold on to why it is so always. And if someone challenges you there to have that close to heart, I think is super important, So you kind of need to maintain like a beginner's mind in a way, right?
I agree with you. My only argument for that is like as a player, when I'm trying to help someone else review their point, it doesn't change the fact that I also have my own points I'm trying to work through. So if I'm trying to speed along that process and like enter their mindset, which is already done, right? Because I needed to find a solution for their problem from my perspective. Which is usually done by thinking what I'm thinking. And if I were playing the same champion in the same situation, it can just be difficult to, be patient and like, especially when you're emotional, you may have lost the game, for example.
Yeah.
It can be really hard. And I think that number one thing for me, like that I want to improve on is actually to take time outside of the post game to discuss these things. Because I think that that's like the number one thing that I struggle with, where I rush these things and I don't have that patience and I don't have that open mind because I'm doing it straight after the game, and I also don't have a dedicated space, like hour after at the end of the day, where we can discuss these things together.
Yeah. That's something that's something that, like in my short stint in KC, it's like you begin to think about what are things that teams do that you like. What are teams that do teams that do well do certain things naturally. It's like they spend extra time after scrims, they review extra details. And it's like, so I really, really wanted to incentivize this. I know that Roman also said it's like what G2 do is they have like daily, like individual check-ins with all of the coaching staff, just 5-10 minutes just to make sure that the players have like a space to just speak their mind. And it's very, very simple. And it's so important still that it's like every coach gets focus time with each player, 5 to 10 minutes, and they do this on a weekly basis. They cover everybody. And what I wanted to do was basically like what I implemented in Casey was that I felt like the time between scrims, there was too much pressure on that. Because my idea was that I think that the time between the games should be used to make sure that the next game is as useful as possible. And in a lot of cases, reviewing every like details that are important might not be important for the next one. And then if that's the case, I didn't feel like it carried over. So we just added the simple thing of, at the end of the day, we're going to just go through the games again. And sometimes we're going to do pairings in groups. Like here we do 3, here we do 3. And sometimes we're going to do as 5. Just to make sure that during the scrim day and during the review point, it's like that people don't feel like, I need to get everything out. Because it's like, I want my bot lane to review their lane. I want to review closely with my top laner. I want to review all these details. But I think I always hated that idea of putting so much pressure on the time in between games. Because like people need to piss, people need to go, some people vape. Like it's incredibly like stressful. And I can imagine for you too. It's like you want to share your points, and if you feel at the end of the day, there's a window for Bwipo to review with his boys. You know that goes a long way. You know.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
It's like
actually,
go ahead.
You brought up like a really interesting point that I wanted to think about. I don't know if you want to add this because obviously we've been talking for 2 hours, but I realized a really important point we hadn't gone over.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's the realization that your team's the way they are, and when you've committed to that. You know what I mean? Like, we're a top side team. It's like, and then your fucking bot lane is like, let's pick Draven, and you're just like, what the fuck? You know, it's like, you know, and it's like, hey, you're hoping your whole team's like, look at this idiot, you know, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But it's like the other way around too, right? Like, you're a bot side team, and your top lane is like, Jace is the solution. It's just like everyone's like, are you sure about that? You know,
it makes me think of like. It's like, I always bring this up, but I don't want to bash on the guy because I kind of feel bad. But it's like, YamatoCannon in the final game that he played for XL, he played Jace.
Yeah.
And that's just, I just like it's just a juxtaposition of everything. And then they brought in the guy that just plays Ornn every game, you know? Like, he got the memo, you know?
I think so too. I mean, I imagine he did. I think that's what, for me personally, it's a huge part of being a professional team. Like a huge part, actually. It's like committing to your identity as a professional and realizing that even though that may not be what you wanted the most, initially, you are now thinking from this perspective. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because politics, actually. Obviously, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of politics, but the reality of the matter is right now, as far as I understand at least, it's very likely Donald Trump will get elected, right?
Yeah, I think he just straight up won. Yeah, he won.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know yet. As of 5:14 p.m. on November 6th, I'm not sure.
I think Kamala Harris has already conceded. Like she already conceded.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I'm not into the loop, but I am into the loop with all these people yapping about it and getting angry and getting upset. And like, I get it. That part, nothing. Like, I don't want to talk about the details. What I don't understand is at what point are people gonna start thinking in the mindset of like, how can we make this the best possible for everyone? And I came to this idea as well from just like thinking about it. I'm not going to speak on my preferences or anything because I'm not educated, so I don't really have one. I just read up on it a little bit because I had time, and I do plan on staying in America for longer. I do want to live here, get a green card, etc. So it does apply to me currently. I did not vote because, again, I didn't think it was reasonable to vote as someone that is not currently an active citizen.
Can you even vote? I don't know if you even
I'm
can.
pretty sure I could, yeah. You don't need ID, so you can just walk in and vote if you want to.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think that's ridiculous, and I didn't, because, again, that's what I stand by. That all said and done, at what point are Republicans going to look at the Democratic policies and consider those as this was maybe not so stupid after all? You know, like climate change, for example, like you know, some of the climate bills or policies, whatever you want to call them. Like, I imagine, like, I personally think that's pretty important. You know, so I'm hoping that it'll be that way. But even the other way around, right? It doesn't have to be a specific thing. Just the concept of we fought against each other to have an eventual outcome on what is going to be the main rule set going forward, right? And teams, this happens too, right? So initially you had a really heated argument about how you're the best top laner in the league and fuck everyone else, you should be carrying. But then you've also got the best bot lane in the league, so it turns out flying through bot lane is better. At what point as a top laner do you stop thinking, I need to pick this to succeed because I'm the best top lane in the league, and you start thinking, how can I make our bot lane succeed because this is what everyone else wants? That is something that I think is a huge deal that doesn't get talked about enough, and players don't get enough responsibility. Fudge, remember the Fiora?
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people are so fucking pissed about it. You know, it's just like it doesn't make sense. This is not what you should be doing for your team, and I think a lot of people like me because I very rarely go against that grain, and I think it's really important too. And like I said, sometimes I have to fight tooth and nail, and I'm just really dude, Jace is so fucking OP. I can't. I have to be able to play this. We need to play it, and this is if the whole team says nah, it's chill, then it's chill, you know. And if the enemy top laner locks in Jason 1v9s, I just well, guys, I did warn you, but hey, it's fine.
Yeah, I have to say, on the point of your analogy, the weird thing is, it's the analogy would be, it's the politics of it all. I don't think it's only in the US, but everything is very based on what is popular, and everything is set up in a way where it's the resistance throughout the years of a commitment through voting on a certain side is about making sure that you hold back what they can achieve and that you can get in power when an election comes again. So the active resistance need to be active. And the extension of that analogy, right, would be in a perfect world, it's they won the election, they want to make these ideas work. Let's try to commit to these ideas and work with them and see how they pan out. And if they don't work, maybe they'll be reasonable and we go in the other direction and we try something else. But sadly, it's the equivalent of esports would be I am playing. It's I need to get a contract next year. People need to know I'm good. People need to know I can carry. People need to know I'm going to have good KDA and I'm going to have good kills and I'm going to have good CS and everyone's going to think I'm really good and blame my teammates for trying to fight when it's good to fight, but I'm just going to spit on them. You know, that is the equivalent of what the politics is.
More specifically, it's a top laner that plays tanks for split, and he's we'll see how it goes. And then when they end up 7th, he's yeah, fuck this shit. Summer, I'm playing carries. yeah. It makes sense. Even though had he kept playing tanks, they probably would have had better results.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's the same thing middle, halfway through the split. I actually realized a lot of top laners do this. It's at the start of the split, they're playing the meta, whatever else plays, or tanks usually. And then by the end of it, they're yeah, fuck this shit. And they're just locking in Jace and running around trying to carry the game and usually failing miserably.
Well, finding the balance of being an olive branch for the longest time is it can be scary. It can definitely be scary because it's in esports. It's in esports people need to people that have thought about the group have been punished, you know, and that's the fault of the things that are in place. Honestly, you know. It's the players that push teams forward. These are players that really need to be celebrated, you know. And I do think it's I'm a person that it's like I've always been very intrigued by players that are controversial but are really, really good at the game. That was always very interesting to me. It's like in season 3, I worked with I made a team with Darkwing Jax and Jensen, at the time where after it's we got permabanned, right? But it's I could see that when they were trying to win, that they were really, really good. So it's I was willing to explore that, to figure that out. And honestly, I can say, at the time when we were preparing and we were boot camping before we got permabanned at the airport, I do think that the effort we put in 3 months and the effort I put in to understanding them and making sure that they succeed was was so worth it, because they were so fucking insane. I think that we were easily a top 3 team in Europe, easily, for playing 2 months together. It's we didn't scrim much against CLG and I'm trying to remember which else teams, because they were already qualified to the LCS. We were just playing against the other teams in the qualifier at the time. Mm-hmm. So it's I've always been intrigued by these characters, because in the end it's they play good, they have strong ideas, and they might be difficult to work with, but it comes from the right place, It's sometimes anger and frustration can come from the right place, and it just needs to be translated, Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just need a little bit of patience, and there's so much reward there, because it's usually, I imagine it's in terms of how, probably we'll never find out too much, because T1 is so good at presenting the PR of the players and so forth. But I want to imagine what went on during the summer split, or the summer splits where they suffered and they played bad. It's what goes on. I'm sure they have arguments. I'm sure they have frustration. I'm sure they have pain, but they get through it somehow, right? And it's everyone is probably super, super demanding in that group, and they are trying super, super hard to be the best team. And in that process, there's a fine line between playing perfect and ending, because you need to pursue something greater. But I would love to just be a fly on the wall to see that team at their worst, not only at their best, in terms of how the dynamic works in the room. Because it's such a unique circumstance that team has been together now for practically 4 years. It's they put in Zeus instead of Kana 3 years ago, but they've been practically together for 4 years. That's something that's fucking unheard of, I can imagine the arguments they've had are now they just know at this point. They probably just know. It's oh, this guy's angry and he is fucking punching the wall. I know exactly what this means. It's it's all good. I'm very, very curious to see because that's so. It's unimaginable. It's could you imagine a world where you work with it? You make a commitment, you're going to work with a team for 5 years.
Actually, I was pretty close to it. I played with Tilly for 4 years, so it's not that unusual. Wait, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2020, yeah, 4 years. I would have been happy to play the rest of my career with him, 100%. Just yeah, things happened. I mean, to be fair, I was just really mad that Fnatic kept making decisions that I did not align with. So I was fuck this shit, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, it happened to me too in the end. It's I think that's I think that's the main thing that is I guess disappointing, because I took a lot of pride in being a Fnatic. I know you do too. You did too. It's just that everyone that stepped away from the org did it in a way that it was just not good. It's happened the same with Nemesis and so forth. It's the way the transitions happened were just not in a good way. And I know that Rekkles was also very, very unhappy, right? Even though I think maybe he could have managed things a little bit better when he joined G2, but that's okay. I don't really care when it comes from the player side. I think they just need to do what's best for them. But it's sad that it is that way sometimes, I think it's just in particular with. It's looking at from the org side what orgs could have done better. I do think that it's G2 during the Carlos era too. It was they jailed Rekkles, they jailed Mickey, they were almost jailing Wunder. We got him out somehow. So Dardo, I don't know how he got him out, but he did get him out. So I give him props for that. He did get Wunder out. But it's and then Fnatic also I do think that there needs to be. It's the great players should be honored in a way that they are being kept around to the point where they are involved either as players or either as just staff in some way, so the transfer of, greatness can happen both in the league and also within the teams that they have worked in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the scorched earth that is like occurring, because looking at, for example, the LCK, I think that they might sometimes be almost too timid about bringing in new players, but they give their legacy players a lot of time. They have a deep respect for like experience and legacy, and I like that a lot. Because the transfer of skill happens real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, for me, the system Fnatic used to implement me as a player, the 6-man roster, should be the only way teams introduce new talent. For me, it's literally an internship, bro. Like, it works in every other company in the world. Why wouldn't it in a league team?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Like, this is tried and tested, Like, internships work if the guy wants to put in the work. You also are able to tell whether or not someone actually wants to put in the work or not, which is also convenient. But that's what I did. I was an intern. I was just there, fly on the wall, listening to what everyone else was doing. And when push came to shove, it turned out I was willing to do what it took.
Mm-hmm. And it would be very different if they didn't take that chance on you at the beginning of the year. And let's say they would be like, "Oh, we need a sub now. Let's bring in the first player we think of." All right, Whip.
Yes.
You haven't been watching us for the last 3 months, but
exactly.
Rock and roll, mate.
Exactly. If I wasn't there, like learning and absorbing all the information from those months, my first LEC finals, ULCS finals would have been a disaster. I can guarantee you, I would have been absolutely clueless, and I would have not been able to do anything about it.
Something I wanted to bring up with you, because time always flies when we talk about a discussion that I had with there's two big important topics that I want to bring up. Like always, there's this discussion about like especially in the context of you guys. I feel like the community oversimplifies what you guys managed to do in terms of finding curveballs in draft, because some of the patterns of, for example, How Alive or Genji are very predictable in the way they draft when they open up a series, right? Mm-hmm. The main thing that it came back to is the community wants to oversimplify that by saying, "Oh, look, they picked unique champions and that's why they won." And I feel like that's almost very, very reductive towards what you guys have managed to achieve in terms of pushing two very, very great teams at the World Championship, because there's an element of understanding the meta in order to break the meta. It isn't just pick something unique. And then the added layer that I would add as well is I think that people underestimate that the Eastern teams are actively also doing this all the time. They are trying to find the next evolution in Draft 2. It feels like it's something the way it's talked about is the Eastern teams are just picking the same champs over and over again. No. It's always World's winners are always very, very adaptive and first movers on many, many champs. What are your thoughts surrounding the whole discussion? Because I think you guys executed super, super well too, and understood the meta in the first place to be able to break it and understand what is good. What are your thoughts on this topic?
I mean, for the most part, it's it ties into what we were talking about initially about this is what I can do. So you need players that are able to just step up and be like, hey, in this matchup, I can actually play this champion. And I think it's really good for these reasons. Mm. Your coaching staff using that to your team's advantage is the hard part. And I want to give all props to Mebdi and Nuke for making that happen. I think that they spent a lot of effort. Obviously, our analysts as well, just for clarity here, but everyone just coming together there as a staff to make sure that we actually are using those champions and we are using those the I cans, like I can play this. Like for example,
Yeah.
Seraphine and Zeri came in last week. It was like the last week, and like Quad stepping up and being like, actually, I can flex Seraphine in this matchup, and I can take it blind under these circumstances. And Zeri and the Silas is something I really want to play. I really believe in it. And actually, everyone, like the first thing me and Inspired was like, wait, isn't Zeri ult like broken on Silas? And he's like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll beat him anyway. And he's like, okay, sure, let's try it. And we tried it in scrims, and in Stage, absolutely, rolled them. So, for me, just that notion, right? It's the same thing for me. You worked with me. A lot of people know this. Like, oh, I can play Urgot into this under these circumstances. Or even simple. It's like, if he blinds now, I can play Urgot as long as I have a target ult. Or you guys have like a champ I can CC off of. Actually, I missed every single Urgot ult in the games I played him. I swear I ulted like I hit one ult the whole game. I was choking my ult so hard. And it just goes to show how broken that champion is. Like even without his ult, like he is just so strong in the right circumstances. But my point is that's my perspective. That's why I'm really proud of my team. It's why I think top, jungle, and mid we had the most unique picks because like that's like what we were bringing, and I really hope that moving forward our bot lane can also add to that. Also, a bit of a trust thing, right? I do think like Maso oftentimes would tell me like, oh, I can play this in this situation, but Nukeduck was our how do I say this? Voice of reason. It's like
the bullshit meter always.
You can play it, but can you play it? Always a fun discussion to have. And I think how stubborn he was about that was always really good, and it's a fun thing. It's like I'm the same. I'm like the opposite when it comes to being a player, where it's just like, I can't play that shit. Don't even bother. Like, it's not happening. Like as soon as there's like a nudge into the direction of a champ like Irelia, it's like, not happening. Like, don't even think about it. I'm not locking that shit in. So I think that's why FlyQuest was very successful at it, because it came from the players initially, and then the coaching staff put in a lot of work to make sure it actually worked, and we did it together. So it's definitely the good synergy on the player/coaches, and then also, like I said, Nukeduck being like very honest about like what works and what doesn't, and being the voice of reason there. It's just like, you can play this, and it has worked, but even when you do well individually, as a team, this doesn't do well for us. I think Mithy is really good at this too, actually, and I think he complemented that really well. I think Nuke was doing it for the whole team, and then Mithy was like individually making sure people were aligned with it.
Yeah.
Because that's how it was. Mithy was always the guy telling me like, you can play this champion here, and like you're owning in scrims. Actually, there's Lulu Top was a champion I practiced a lot, and I wanted to play it so bad. Even at Worlds, I thought it was really good. But she was someone where Mithy came to me and told me like, when we lock in Lulu as a team, even though you can shit online, we're not so sure it's the best way to win. And Nuke was like, we could draft Lulu, or we could just pick Renekton, and you know what happens. And in most games except the last two I played. So it was just like, fuck it, and like in those moments as well, just to private home one last time, joy goes a long way. It really does, because laughing about that and being like, you know what, you're right. Why the fuck am I playing Lulu? I think it does go a long way.
No, for sure. No, it's crazy because like there were moments where I was going insane watching you guys in spring in particular. Like I remember you guys had like this Tam Kench, fucking Annie, GP. I don't know what the fuck was going on there. Like that seems like the bullshit meters were missing. Sometimes the bullshit
I think that's where Nuke learned his lesson. Nuke learned his lesson. He was like, fuck this shit. We're not doing this shit again next split. I'm telling my players what they're playing.
No, I like speaking with Nuke because like he did. I like when things and decisions are simple. When things are simple, it's like, we don't do draft meetings because things should be already like predetermined. It's like, bro, we are scrimming, we are drafting. It's like, if we're not drafting what we're playing, what are we doing? And it's like it's like having those draft meetings where players are tense and anxious and have 10 million ideas and they have to fucking challenge every point. Because I realized like in Fnatic 2022, I always sat up with shaves till 4 a.m. I always pieced it together. Like I pride myself on like piecing together all the pieces that we know and reading the enemy team, having like a gut feeling. And it was like always, I remember there was this one day where the whole week we're banning GP and then we come into the day and it's like, why we're banning GP? It's like, I was like, absolutely banning GP because Alfari is the only champion he plays. It's like, no, we shouldn't ban GP. It's like, Wunder, can you play against GP? Wunder's like, yeah, I can play against GP. I was like, guys, we're going to get dove on wave 3. We are very, very bad at this. We don't know how to connect. We are going to lose the game. This is their best champ. It's like, no. It's like, you can play Gale against GP? You can play Gale against GP? Okay. Razork, you're going to just defend the dive? And all of them were like, yeah, we could just do this. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And I thought in this moment, I was like, okay, it's a BO1 mid-split. I'm going to give them this one. If they win, God bless them. I trusted them, okay. But if they lose, I can hold this against them for the rest of time. I can hold this
shells into your gun.
And it was an investment. We lost. We got dove. Our Kale died. We had like this fucking Kale Twitch combo shit that we cooked up last minute. But it was just counterintuitive because it's Alfari. They only played GP, and I realized that with this group, what I had to do is I would present the draft, and then people would have issues with it, and then I would present the same draft again. Which is people just needed to get it out of the system, to complain and to get their anxiety out of the way. But I think like those draft meetings in a lot of cases are just completely like pointless. It's like the foundation of what you're drafting needs to be something that lives and grows in every day. And when it's challenged, it needs to be ready. If it's not ready, well, like what the fuck are you doing in practice? Because I think that's so important to carry over always the ideas, because like as well that players can come in and it's like, fucking, this champion is useless. I don't want to play this anymore. It's like, no, bro. We are rooted in the ideas that we believe in. Like it needs to be reasonable how we move from point A to B. It can't be, I got fucked in solo queue and I don't want to play it anymore. It needs to be reasonable. Yeah, it's like, the draft needs to grow throughout the year.
I agree with you, but I do want to say, like, I'm not entirely like I like draft meetings when there needs to be a discussion had, whereas the strategy is clearly not working and we're still doing it.
Yeah.
Like,
of course,
guys, like I need to understand what's going on here. Like, for example, another one as well is like, look, like we were lane swapping a lot, right? Obviously, because like lane swapping was like the meta, and it was really important to get it down well. And something that would happen in our scrims, regardless of swap or not, I don't know. I mentioned lane swap, but it's actually a mid-game lane swap. It's like the grub swap, they show up like after you've laned first round normally, or even if we swap, then they would reswap. We would have this situation in scrims a lot where my bot lanes wouldn't match them for like 2 to 3 waves, 4 waves, and we wouldn't really get enough bottom side. And I told them, like, look, guys, like this, like I basically called in a draft meeting, basically saying, like, look, if we draft like this cannot happen. You can't allow this. This is not allowed. If you keep letting these guys come to my lane and fuck me over and I'm playing Urgot, I'm going to be useless. If I'm playing Olaf, I'm going to be useless. Like, it's not allowed. You have to start matching them, or you need to annihilate that guy and end his game on the spot.
No, for sure.
So I will say that draft meetings are a place where I would normally do this and have this discussion. But since we didn't have them, I had to find my own way to set that meeting. And let me put it this way. It was never like natural, and it felt like I was just being a cunt, but I really wasn't. I was just genuinely concerned. Like, I don't want to go on stage, lock in Urgot, and then when they swap, I'm laning against them for 2 to 4 minion waves at a time. I need my bot lane to match them and get me out of this lane, because my champion can't function if I'm getting 1v2.
The way I understood it was that I thought that was just like a part of like the review process.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like, the review process is, hey, you guys need to do that. But that's what I'm saying. Even though we had that review and said, hey, you guys need to do this, it didn't happen. It kept not happening. I kept having to lane 2, 3, 4 waves against these dual lanes, and I was just like, what the fuck?
Because it ties into our previous conversation, right? It's like draft should tie into ideas always. And in my mind, it's like the draft should be living, because it's like if you play a game, it's like I feel about the champs that you picked. I think it's a very important part of like the review aspect. It's like, was this the best champion we could pick? It's like, did you succeed in what you wanted to succeed in? What went wrong in what you wanted to succeed in? I think that part of the review process is important, because it ties into what we talked about before. It's like understanding your relation to your teammates and also your champion's relation to the game, right? Because I think these are the ideas that are the most important, because then you know what you should be looking for in your role in that particular game, right? So I tie that into like the draft conversation. I understood that this is how you guys would do it, that like in the review sessions also, like Like if you would say, yo, if I play this champ, I need to fucking have this.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it would be like a part of that, you know?
Oh, no, it definitely is. It's just sometimes it's like fake data, you know? Like, you've scrimmed, probably more than I have, actually. You've watched scrims more than I have. And
Yeah.
A lot of players aren't honest about what actually is going on. Like, for example, I get 1v2 and I win the game. I'm not the kind of player that's going to sit there and be like, oh, it's fine. I can handle them 1v2 on stage. Like, I know it's not going to be fine. And that's what I'm saying. It's obviously, like you mentioned, there's a lot of stress. And in between games, there's not the time to have this discussion, and I don't want to bring it up because we won the game and it was fine immediately. Like we brought up the point, we brought the review. It's just like separate from when we're scrimming. I like having an opportunity to just be like, hey, everyone. Like I say it like this: I want everyone's signature to be underneath the draft. Don't care if you don't care, sign it, and that's your problem. That's up to you. But I need you to look at it and sign. This is the matchup I'm going to play. I know what I'm supposed to do. We're all on the same page. That for me is a must. I must have my player signatures under the draft. If you don't sign your name under the draft, or you're not diligent in reviewing what you need to do, what your teammates need to do, and you are committed to that, I will have you replaced by the end of the split, because that's just not acceptable. You must be fully involved in the team's game plan, and you must... Oh, actually, I should say this. I don't have that much power, actually. I will go at the end of the split, or you will. I refuse to work with people that do not put in the work.
Yeah.
That do not care about every little detail. Everything matters. Always will, always has, always will. I need people to want to be the best. And I refuse, when I push people to be better, to be satisfied with the status quo. I actually used this example just before I matched against Gen G. I told my bot lane this. Guys, the reason why I got really mad about the lane swap thing, and in general about the situations, is because when they swap on you, you guys have tempo. You guys get to decide whatever you want. And usually, I'm not easy to break. It takes them quite a few waves to actually do something on me. So I want you guys to use that to your advantage. And I want you guys to understand that you have an opportunity to pull more weight. And this analogy for me is pretty simple. Think of a solution, a problem that you're trying to solve as an amount of weight. I'm going to use 100 kilograms here as a simple number. A league team trying to win a league game, I compare it to 100 kg being pulled by 5 people. So if you are pulling your 20 kgs, you're doing your job. Sure, no problem. But sometimes someone, they have a bad grip. They're only pulling 15, or maybe, I don't know, they tripped on the way to work and their leg is busted. They can only do 5 kilos. Hell, maybe he tripped over himself, fucking planted face first on the weight, and now is adding weight to the problem. What I'm trying to tell you is life happens. Not every day, all the time, everyone can pull 20 kilos.
Yeah.
So I fundamentally believe that you, as a teammate, must be willing and actively seeking to pull more weight when possible. And that is when a lot of players go from, why, this guy's like the smartest player I've ever seen, to, wow, he's an idiot. Usually, when I'm trying to pull more weight, well, maybe not usually, 50-50, I don't even know what the number is, but a lot of the time it's like, wow, he's really smart. But sometimes I'm trying to pull more weight and you think like, why is he trying to pull more weight? And that is my biggest flaw.
Mm-hmm.
I will always try to pull more weight. I very rarely played league games where I was comfortable not pulling much weight. And that's something that I want to work on that. I definitely see that as a flaw. But I think that's the issue. And I think that so many players were happy pulling their 20 kilos and going home. And it's just like, dude, like, fuck. Like, that, remember, I'm going to quote myself. I said, fuck you guys. The people that went home after pulling their 20 or 19 or 18 kilos and are like, I get enough. Fuck you. You are poison. Every single one of you, you are poison. You are what made LEC what it is today. I can tell you that much. Only one team competitive in that region. What a shame. Truly. What a shame. Like, absolutely disgusting. And I feel the same way about this still. To me, at least, this is the worst thing you can do. To not be willing to pull more weight for the people that have your best interest in mind. And you should really have their best interest in mind, because let's be real. What are the odds of you getting screwed over if you're on a successful team? I would say very low, right? They exist. They always exist. You can always get fucked over in these sports, but they're very low, right?
Yeah.
They're like what, 10%? Like out of the 9 people that were successful on a team, like what, 1 guy gets replaced, 2 maybe? Like what's that? 10, 15, 20%? Let's be generous here and say 33% chance. What's the odds of you getting screwed over if you lost, or you're just doing the bare minimum? I know a lot of teams that end up 7th or 6th or 5th that lose their coaches, they lose their 1 or 2 of their players, and suddenly you have, what, 50, 60, 70% chance to get replaced? It's illogical, it is selfish, and it is genuinely stupid to not want to pull more weight. Now, obviously, you must be honest in what you can and cannot do. You must be honest in saying, I tried to pull too much weight. This is my fault. Which is why I never had arguments with my staff, by the way. Because I always look at my staff and I'm like, I tried too hard, sorry. Like, I shouldn't have tried to do this much. This was wrong of me. But I don't know of a single staff member that thinks I am hard to work with. I know of a lot of players that probably think I do. think of me that way. Which is fair, because like I'm saying, I'm very easy for coaches to work with, because I admit that very quickly. Because that's how I roll. I'm always about pulling more weight. And if I know a way for you to pull more weight, I will always try to push you to pull it. And this is, for me, the home run here, so you get a really good idea of who I am in a team. Even when I'm sitting down on the weight, putting my entire fat 90 kilos on top of it, I'm still going to yell at you for not fucking carrying me when I think you could have. When I see that you could have pulled, when I'm griefing my ass off and I'm 0-6 and I see that you could have, and you're not telling me, oh, my bad, I could have carried you even though you were absolutely griefing, because I was absolutely griefing. I'm going to go to you and be like, hey, I was absolutely griefing. I completely understand, but why didn't you carry me? Because you could have, and I know you could have. And I will have an argument. It's a hill I'm going to die on, even when I griefed you.
No, I think it's giga important. Because it's like, to be honest, it's like the game state has no the relationship with the past, only the relationship that you make of it. Because a player should be capable of joining it. Like if I throw you in a game, 25 minutes in, you're champion 0-5, you're 100 CS down, you need to be able to play that game. It's like the relationship with the state of the game has nothing to do with what happened in the past. That's only whatever you build it up as. Because every situation needs to be looked at for what it is. Because I think that's also like a common flaw in players, right? That they want like continuity in a game. And it's like, if you are striving for continuity, you're going to do things that are comfortable. And that makes you good in some cases, but not great, because you need to look for opportunities always, regardless of what the state is, right? So I think that's the right approach, right? Like if your teammate could have done something much better, regardless of what you did in the past to achieve that game state, it's like, I think that's the right approach. I do think that's the right approach. Probably you can say, I was inting, but bro, you could have fucking carried it. What the fuck are you doing? It's definitely, one of those like.
I think it goes to it's like it's almost like a generational mindset issue, based on what I read from social media, right? Obviously, maybe I shouldn't define it as generation by social media. I apologize. But like I read a lot of people being like, oh, why should I work hard at my part-time job? I'm just making my boss more money. And it's like it's hard work for me is finding ways to be more efficient in achieving the same result. That is hard to do, right? How do you improve your process to achieve better results more consistently? Because that is value attributed to you, not your result. And even though short term someone may take advantage of you and pay you less money and gain more profit short term, long term you will just be a more valuable asset. And eventually, if you are willing to stay in that field where you are proficient, you are going to get paid the money you are owed.
Yeah.
And worth. Eventually. Obviously, at some point, you do need to be able to set your foot down and say, like, hey, I do this, no one else does this. This is valuable. You're going to have to be reasonable in what you pay me, right, for these results. But fundamentally, when learning, I don't see the issue. For example, I came into Fnatic, 3 years. I got paid quite a bit, but nothing crazy. I really didn't get paid anything crazy for my first 3 years. And then they offered me 950,000 euros, Jesus Christ, and TL $800,000. And my point is like 100%, like that was probably based on my results and what I was bringing to teams, what I was worth. That's what people determined what I was worth. And it made sense. After my TL stint, I got offered, I mean, I'm not going to say my salary this year because it's still my salary. I think it's a bit weird. But I can tell you it's less than a third of it. Right? And that's still a shitload of money. Whoa, don't misunderstand me. I get paid.
There's a lot of also like market changes too, right? It was like I think that was like probably like money. That was like the last year of like the big contracts because
maybe yeah.
This was like pre FTX explosion. This was where there was crypto sponsors and esports and all that good stuff. So it's there's that in part too. I just want to make sure to add that, but please
maybe.
Continue.
But for me, at the end of the day, I still get paid a shitload of money. But after my stint here at FlyQuest, I know for a fact that if I maintain my standards that I set in Fnatic, and I use the fact that I didn't use those standards to push my team to be better in Team Liquid, and I realized that and now push my team in FlyQuest, which I think I've managed to do, and I continue to push. Maybe it won't be the same amount of money, but my point is I will be offered money comparable to some of the highest paid players in the league I want to go to. Because
like on a scale.
My processes. Yes, exactly. It doesn't have to. What I'm trying to say is like I would have been one of the highest paid players in Europe if I took that offer in Fnatic, if not the highest.
Yeah.
And my point is, if I do this with FlyQuest and I put in all my effort, even though I'm still getting paid, a lot less comparatively, the opportunity to prove that you are capable is one you should take, and you should be 100% down to work under what you're worth, because you need to simply prove it to the world, right? And that's when you can cash in and get the big bucks. And I think that a lot of people don't have that mindset, which is a bit of a shame in my opinion, because I think that's the way it should be perceived personally.
Yeah, I think that on more like in terms of like the conversation about our generation, I do understand the pain point of like in terms of like buying your own house and the disconnect in terms of like how much money you can make, and it's like definitely like people can be taken advantage of, but I am in the same boat as you, right? Especially like I think if you are striving to play and be like very, very competitive in regards to something, and you are working in a competitive field, there's no other way to do it. That's like why I feel the need to step back, because my trust was broken in regards to KC, and they did that, and that's okay. I have nothing against KC, but in order for me to uproot my whole life, I know that if I work in a team, I will give my whole life into that team. And currently, there is a disconnect between what would be required for me to feel safe doing that, and what offers I have at the table now, because I just don't have people like there's not enough people that I trust to do that, because there's no other way to work. Like if I just take a job to just be mediocre at it and just to play, like just be like move along, I couldn't live that way. It's like whatever I do, I want to do it the best way possible for my own sake, and also because if there's any sense of justice in this world, is that eventually it will pay off. It's like it comes back to the previous example. It's like you will eventually be surrounded by like-minded individuals if you work a certain way. And if you allow your environment to poison your ideas, then you have become what you despise. And you need to always fight against this, because eventually there will be opportunities, and with some luck, you will be on a team that will, appreciate what you bring to the table, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
We are.
Example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give you an example to finish off the point.
Yeah.
My parents had me bartend as a student job.
Yeah,
I took it pretty seriously. I wanted to get really good at it, even though like I never drink. To this day, I never drink, but I actually really enjoyed bartending. And a lot of times people ask me, "What would you do if you were an esports player?" I'd bartend, even though I don't drink. Actually, I hate drinking, but I liked it. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Bartenders shouldn't be drinking, so that's good. It's a good combo.
True, actually. True. Good point.
I can imagine
That's what I was
Bwipo in a
saying.
bar. You own your own bar, on Cali Beach.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
You're serving up drinks. You're sharing esports stories.
Yeah, it'd be a good time. And even if I don't have my own bar, I'd be happy to work in someone else's bar. But my point is, I'd want to be really good at it. And trust me, my parents didn't pay me that much money. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like that was always my mindset. It's not really about the amount of money. It's just this mindset will allow you to be one of the highest paid people in that job. Obviously, it's up to you, like whether or not you want to pursue a job that doesn't get paid much. Like that's up to you, But I'm just giving you the keys for anyone listening. Like this is the way you're going to excel in your field. It is to work on yourself and to focus on your process and make sure that your process is as efficient as possible to achieve the best results the most consistently.
And the final thing, and the final thing I would add to this too is like, people always say do your best. But I am of the belief that whatever you're doing is actually your best. It's like whatever reason you give yourself to do less, it's like, I didn't care too much. That's you at your best at the time. Like whatever you do is your best. And the sooner you're honest about that with yourself, that whatever you're doing is actually your best, the easier you'll actually move on from bullshitting yourself. It's like there is this book, right? The Book of Five Rings. It's like basically like the how samurais lived their way, and they took every aspect of their living very, very seriously. It wasn't just how they controlled their sword, but it was as simple as it's like in terms of how they did calligraphy as well, in terms of how they were doing their writing. They did it. They mastered it, because in terms of your effort and where your soul is, whatever you do is your best. I just find it so often. It's like you have players and he says, I was tired. My coffee wasn't right. I don't care too much. These guys are boosted. It's like, no, this is your best. So it's like the faster you call your own bullshit out, the faster you can actually become better too. And we
beautiful.
We approach 2 hours and 30 minutes. I wanted to bring up one thing. One thing. That's going to be the longest episode.
Risky move, bro.
The final thing I wanted to bring up before I give you an opportunity to also, bring up a final thing, because you always do it on the Sackdown, is, a big discussion is, T1, I think, obviously, they have fantastic individual players. Like even though they haven't won LCK since spring 2022, they've been competitive at tournaments, right? MSI, LCK, they've made top 2 and so forth. It's formidable, right? But somehow at Worlds, it's always very different. And my rationale, of course, is that this is a group of players that are, have worked together for a very, very long time. Worlds is very different because you get challenged on very different things in comparison to other tournaments, because the schedule is very sporadic. You move around, you move locations. It's like you need to stay sane, stay healthy, and you need to go with the punches, because the punches are very, very random. I think anyone knows that there is a bit of luck that is necessary to win the World Championship, but also now with T1 being in 3 finals, winning 2 of them, obviously there is a skill set there in terms of what the World Championship is, because it's a very, very unique tournament. It's like so many teams that are great go to the World Championship and they play bad. Sometimes it can be illness. Sometimes it can be not adjusting to your environment, because obviously playing in your league, playing in your own homestead and in your arena and where you are, and having a lot of time to practice and all these details, obviously is a very, very different type of competition. So that's like my read on it in terms of how Worlds is different and how T1 have a certain skill set in terms of, doing well. I wanted to ask your take in terms of you have a vast amount of experience. I do believe like you've been at Worlds more times than me. Like I've been 4 times. You are, how many tournament deep are you? It was 2018, 19, 20.
5 worlds. Yeah,
5 worlds. 5 worlds, and then what? 2 MSIs? 3 MSIs? 2 MSIs. 2 MSIs. So you're 7 in. And then you had the EWC as well. In regards to what makes the World Championship unique and how you tie that to T1 and their success. What would be your read on it?
Someone
and
asked
why
me
is
this,
T1? Huh?
Someone asked me this. My friend Bowen asked me this.
Oh, really?
So I already have the answer prepared. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
They have the best individual players in the world, or some of the best individual players in the world. And when the world's meta shifts, there isn't enough time for people to set their identity in stone. Your identity is based on the performance of week 1 of scrims first, then week 1 of Worlds, and week 2 of Worlds. For example, Nocturne Orianna was a composition that was very popular initially at Worlds. It won week 1, then absolutely got shit on week 2, right?
Yeah.
When T1, with some of the best players in the division in the world, plays at Worlds, they literally show up week 1 playing the Nocturne Orianna if that's what works for them, shit on people, and then when it stops working, they instantly stop. Like, they don't have to stick to it because their players are so skilled individually that they can just adapt like this.
Okay.
That's why I think T1 always performs at Worlds, because their players are just really fucking good individually. And I think a lot of teams don't have that kind of quality. They don't have that like world's best kind of quality. So I definitely think this is like an valued part of their individual strengths. And actually, if I open their drafts, fun fact, I didn't watch the last 2 best of 5s they played. I avoid opening ceremonies and in general spectating finals if I don't make them there, because I shouldn't be a part of the experience as a competitor if I didn't make it there. I believe that. That's my own personal.
Oh, you missed out this year.
Shit. I'm sure I did. Everyone said it was beautiful, but that's life. I missed out because I didn't make it. Sucks to suck. The only one I watched was 2021 because I was there in person because TL needed me to be. So sorry, 2022 because TL needed me to be. Every other one except 2018 I didn't watch.
Oh, definitely. Like individually, they are like insanely saucy, right? Like individually, they have the capacity to be like the best for sure. Whereas, like if you compare it to like a Gen G, I feel like Gen G is a team that is very happy to be like very practiced on a patch. You know, like there are certain teams that are very good when they're very practiced, and I feel like now with how the Worlds is, I do feel like things become a little bit less precise, but at the same time, it's like the skirmishes matter more. It's like the nuances of the early game and the dives and how you execute them. These are the things that you need to be good at. And also, I agree with, it's like a lot of the lessons that happen real time seem to be happening on stage. It's like everyone was playing Ahri, and then people realize, oh, Silas gets fucking reset now on Ahri when he gets a kill. Now it's you can't play, and then people were losing Silas into Ahri, and then people were blind picking Silas, and then all of a sudden people realize, oh shit, Galio is fucking broken. And it's like the timing of that is just so crucial too, because sometimes How Alive, for example, was at the receiving end of the Galio and the Silas into Ahri, and then they just fell out of the tournament, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's why T1's so good, is because they can always make you be on the receiving end of any meta change because their players are so fucking good individually. They are never suffering from meta change. When in-patch meta change at Worlds happens week to week or even day to day, T1's on the good side of it 99% of the time. Well, obviously an exaggeration, but for the majority of times, they're punishing you with the meta adaptations instead of getting punished because their players can, and that's the thing, a lot of players cannot. If suddenly Fiora is the most broken top laner in the game, I'm fucked. I have to ban her the whole fucking tournament. Zeus like, yeah, fuck yeah, baby, woo, locks it in, you know, like, oh fuck, Gragas is good, boom, locks it in. Like, same in support, Pyke's good, fuck yeah, give me that shit. Maokai's good, give me that shit. Fucking Ashe is broken, oh hell yeah. Same for Faker, oh Galio's broken, shit, bro, you think? All right, let's see how it goes. Silas? Hell yeah, brother. Ahri? Oh, fuck. Why not? And that's what I'm saying. Like, how many teams can say that on every single role? None. That's the reality. There's not a single team in the world that can do that, except T1. It's no surprise that at Worlds, they are not to be fucked with. And this is why domestically they're a lot weaker too, because all their semantics have limits, right? So if they have 5 different drafts that they can use to counter a certain element, at the end of the split, they're going to be revealed. You're going to know what those drafts are, right? Like, you run out of juice. There's 170 champions, but only so many drafts are the best, right? And at some point, you can, in fact, force them to play your game because you've played that patch for a month straight. And it's basically been the same game for 3 months. Because the reality about a Worlds patch is it's a huge patch change after a stale meta for a long time. The meta doesn't change enough from week 1 to week 9. It's the same shit. just a little different. It really isn't that big a
Yeah.
difference, at least in my opinion. I don't know if you agree.
Definitely this year, like how we had Koki Tristana running the whole year.
Exactly. And it was just the same shit over and over again. So like, if Faker has something spicy in the Corki Tristana, he shows it once, the whole LCK saw it, and everyone gets the scrim and like try it for themselves. Nasus, for example, he showed up and like, holy fuck, yeah, he was an absolute beast into these champions, but he got neutered extremely quickly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, T1's that team that shows up at Worlds, and like, you have to be concerned with them playing Nasus every single game from that point onwards. You have to be concerned about Nasus, and then, like you mentioned, Galio, Ari, Orianna Nocturne, fucking X, Y, Z, every single role, they can just pick up those champions with no mercy. And in a regular split, that's just not as viable because Riot just doesn't make that many changes during regular split for you to have that many options. And even if you have many options, due to the nature of the season, kind of dragging on with small changes, you reveal all your cards by the end of the split, usually. You kind of have to be dominating. And even if you're dominating using these picks, people will find their answers over time. It'll come. And they'll be prepared for it.
Since Bwipo, you played at the finals, right? Like in regards to how practice was, I guess in Korea was very unique, right? Because you get to you scrimmed against like the demons.
Griffin bullied us. They bullied us.
The demons.
Hey, they bullied IG2 allegedly. So I mean, everyone's we're both getting bullied by.
Is what I heard too. I guess it's a very unique circumstance because, like for example, DRX when they won, like over in like North America, or like now T1 it's like solo queue and scrims become so weird, right? It's like. Yeah. But at least you guys that year 2018 played against fucking good teams that were willing to practice in the patch and so forth. So I guess the experience is a little bit different.
Fun fact, you know why we got shit on by IG? You can go and check. You know what they played in the finals?
Yeah, the fucking Sion, you mean?
Sion, Galio, Lissandra, bro. It wasn't just Sion. Both their solo laners completely shifted what they prioritized. I mean, not completely. They did play a really into me game too. But my point is,
and that was the same, right?
Like this. That's what I'm saying. That is so powerful. Is you're prepping against a team that's willing to, based on what you do, just tell you, actually, I have a better draft for that, and just change the entire draft, the entire dynamic of their team. Even like it's fucked, bro. It's hard to deal with that shit at Worlds because at Worlds usually make sure there's a lot of things viable.
Yeah. Oh, it's like it's always the same story. It's like the teams they get pushed, and if they survive the push, like the RX when they won, they were close to elimination all the time. And in that, you learn so much about what you can and cannot do. And by the end, it's like people want to say that Zeka was like some melee OTP, but in that game 5, he just fucking took the Azir away. He played fucking Ari really, really fucking good too. His Orianna was clean as well. Like they had a bunch of jungle picks that they were willing to play, like the fucking Hecarim. Like they were so deep into their pool. Like they did the bar draft right with the Caitlyn, like open for the first time. Like they were rolling with the punches. And it's always like the same story in terms of like the teams that survived the push, even on Bilibili's side. It's like they started off really, really fucking bad. They didn't have a good meta read right, and then they bounced back and they figured some things out and were willing to go deeper, and they had the players to do so. I agree wholeheartedly. Bwipo, we are approaching 3 hours, brother.
No. That's it for me. I've spoken all my mind.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, is there something you want to bring up? But you're already answering that.
No. Everything I wanted to, I took the liberty to. Thank you very much for that. And that's just the way it is, bro. Every World's winner is like this. You think back to 2019 FPX, same shit, bro. Like they just show up and they play some shit that's just like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, and no one else playing this shit. Like, and then it's like, oh fuck, it's the best way to win the game. Oh well, fuck. And like, you need some luck, sure, but having players that can play everything. I mean, yeah. I'm just saying, like, you need some luck for the meta to be in your favor to have a good performance at Worlds. But if you want to win Worlds, there's no such thing. You play every meta and you just fucking shit on people with no mercy. And that, well, not necessarily shit on them, but like, you play every meta and you do it well. That is non-negotiable, and that's been the story for every single World practically since 2018, from what I remember at least. Maybe even 27. Faker has 5 titles. I mean, the guy plays every style. Is he the best in the world at every single style? Up there, actually, Yeah, pretty close. So maybe not every single style. Maybe whatchamacallit? Maybe Chovy is a bit better at farming and like scaling and carrying the game like that than like a traditional mage or an Azir, but semantics.
I definitely think that both Faker and Knight have a better spread of
exactly.
like they definitely have like a way better spread because Chovy is very confined in that particular. That's like MSI was so successful for him because it's like no one could play Erlen Soul like him, no one could play Koki like him. Like people had to slam 2 bans, and he was willing to play Talia too, and he was just in the pocket during that tournament.
Also, Genji's weakness, in my opinion, just to finish off this point, I think that's what Genji's weakness is they practice that very rigid style the whole year because of Chovy. I don't think it's his fault necessarily. I just think that his staff needs to kind of step in there. I mean, again, my opinion, his staff needs to step in is like, guys, like we can't be warping our meta around Chovy permanently. Like, we need to be able to play everything if we want to win worlds. And, like for example, remember when he like played Sion, Galio, Poppy, stuff like this? Like you need to be willing to do that. The point is they were doing it every game, and in my opinion, for no reason. It was not reasonable to pick it as often as they did. They really overdid it that one Worlds. I think it was 2019.
It was 2019 when they lost against IG.
Yeah, exactly. I think they overdid it, but the concept, the idea was healthy. It was good for their team. It's just like he shouldn't have been playing tanks every single game. It should have just been oh shit, like in the right spots, Sion, like he slams Sion, shits on his lane opponent and becomes immortal. That is broken, But blind picking Poppy mid and shit like that on cooldown, perhaps a bit too far.
It is interesting because 2021 when he was in How Alive, he had such inters on his team. That he really had to like warp the whole game with his champion choice. Like we played against him twice, and one game he just picks Yasuo into Ryze MF, and we're like, what the fuck? People play this champ? And then he fucking slammed LB against our TF, like invited the TF, and we're like, fuck me, he plays LB too? Jesus Christ, what a fucking demon, It's just like it's sometimes. It's like sometimes players need to suffer to learn the lessons, Like, it's weird how it works that way, but I definitely think that he sticks to the same recipe, And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. He lost against How Alive.
I think that's because of this, like the way their team is built, and I don't think it's just his fault personally.
Agreed. 100% agreed. I think people gave him a lot of blame when it's like people was like, oh, he should do things. It's like, no, he's stealing wave, he's farming, he's going deep, he's playing safe. This is like what Genji did the whole year. It's like the fact that his team is fighting here is not what they do. Definitely.
Yeah.
But okay.
That's what I'm trying to say is like, just to finalize again, like if that guy picks Galio into Silas, he's gonna fucking put the Silas in the ground. Like actually, like it doesn't matter. A winning matchup, this guy plays a winning matchup. Melee, range, fucking support, AD carry. It doesn't matter. If you put a 1v1 lane, any champion for this Chovy guy, like he will demolish your laner. And that's my point. They should use that as leverage throughout the whole year, and not as an excuse to play scaling no matter what, because you can't beat him in lane. Because sometimes he needs to be the guy slamming the Galio into the Silas and absolutely shit stomping the Silas and like controlling the whole game. And if he doesn't get carried, and this is the point, your solution cannot be, oh, let's just pick Chovy a carry champion. Your solution has to be, guys, step it the fuck off. This guy just owned mid lane so hard. You were playing 4v5 practically for X minutes. Like, it's time to carry the game. And that's kind of, I think, where T1 as a staff definitely just has been the best org in the world, in my opinion, where it's like when Faker was playing this kind of supportive role, he's playing the Lulu mid, playing the Galio mid, and he's playing a supportive role. Obviously, one of the, if not the best player in the world when it comes to these champions. Still, as a mid laner, when he put in all the work, they were not satisfied with just putting him on a different carry champion. They made sure everyone else on the team fucking put in the work to carry, and we're right there with him. So that he could play these champions and excel. And they had the confidence to lock it in on stage so that he can have his game-changing moments. Because actually, if you've watched Chovy play Galio,
he's a demon.
He's fucking good at this champion, bro.
Yeah.
Like, his spacing. I watched one clip of him play Aatrox versus Galio on Galio's side. I've never seen someone space Galio's passive and sidestep Aatrox Qs the way that guy did. Like, it looked like a winning matchup for Galio. It was disgusting how good this guy is. At which point I will stop my Chovy glazing. I really think that guy's insane.
Agreed.
And like I said, I just find that he's being put in circumstances where other people around him are relying too much on his strengths. Obviously, I'm not in that team, so I don't know. But I'd love to see him win a world championship. He deserves it. And more props to T1 and Faker, because I do think they are bread and butter for a good reason, They complement each other so fucking well. It's everything you want your esports org to be, and it is an inspiration to still see them play at this level. And I really hope, now that I got to show the rest of the world, it's not just Faker that can, have success long term. After a good 3 years of not really making it to quarters, here I am again. Obviously, I'm not trying to compare myself to him. I'm just saying, if I can come back here after 3 years, so can my brothers. And I really hope I see them there. I really, really do. I hope I can see Hilly. I'll say this publicly as the last thing, actually. I have promised Hilly that I will help him. So if he gets screwed over by his teammates, I will step in. If people are not willing to pull more weight, they will have to go through me. They will have to argue against me and tell me why they're not willing. Because he deserves it. I wanted to finalize the statement with saying, because you mentioned he's so good. I've quantified what makes him so good. He doesn't misplay mechanically. When you're there and he's there and you just let him play his game, right? You have tempo and you just press S in a bush next to Hilly. He doesn't miss. It doesn't happen. He does not miss his CC. It just doesn't happen. I don't remember it happening. It's just not something I can remember. Every single play I remember from Hilly making. Okay, there's exceptions, right? I will admit. But my point is like, it's in the 90x percentile of this guy hitting crowd control on the best players in the world. He does not miss. And that for me is why I was just like, holy shit, this guy's the best support player in the world. Because when it comes to PvPing, he doesn't misplay. And I value that so much. And I will make sure that his teammates on Vitality know what it means to support that. I've committed to that, to him personally, and now to the people listening. I want to see him succeed because I know he will. And honestly, it's the same for Rekkles. I think Rekkles, he 100% fucking has it. I spoke to him. I know that guy. He's still him, 100%.
Yeah.
Huge respect for both my boys, and I really, really hope watching me play in other quarters and give Gen G a run for their money, just like we used to back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it motivated them because I want to see them back up there because they deserve to be.
Okay.
After speaking with them, I can tell you, they're still cut out for this.
Yeah, bro. With Hilly, bro, as I mentioned before, he just needs someone in his corner, So that's good.
I will be the corner and I will push everyone into it if I must. I don't mind.
With Rekkles, for me personally, it's hard as the judge, right? Because I never got the chance to work with him.
Sure.
I spent a lot of time in the off season, and I played with him on a team in season 2. So,
makes sense.
I know that like in terms of his support play and his like most recent AD play, right? That there's some personal question marks, but I do. Feel the sentiment of like there's a certain attitude, in terms of how you approach the game, because it's like what you do regionally can only translate globally if you are being honest about the opportunity that is there. And I think when you play, it's like the way you played in LCS, you played exactly the same way. Obviously, like Sati better and better because you guys were improving, but you played the same way. It's like you were the Bwipo that fucking put his body on the wave. You created space, you pushed forward, and that shit happened against fucking Gen G too. And Hilly the same. It's like Hilly would fucking completely dab and fucking spit on people in the LEC. And then it's like, bro, he's fucking diving Gen G ball in. That's fucking this 100%. Exhausting night's fucking Rakan.
100%. I want to just speak on Rekkles actually, because I don't think I've spoken about this, so it'll be a Sackdown exclusive. But I actually believe the culture that was set in Europe of like you should play what you're good at was set by Rekkles.
Yeah,
he was the guy. He was the guy that made that culture. When people watched him play Tristana,
fucking AD Cannon and
AD Cannon, like people had to ban this shit.
Yeah,
and I really bought into it, and I realized this year actually when I spoke to him, he was like, "Hey, dude, like I'm that guy because of you." I think Europe, a lot of Europe's success came from this mindset where it's just like their best players would play what they're best at. This is just what you would do if you wanted to win, and I don't think he ever got credit for that. Everyone was always saying Perks the GOAT, Caps the GOAT. And sure, I'm not trying to argue who's the greatest of all time here. I'm just saying that people should put some respect on Rekkles for that, because I think it was a huge deal for why Europe was so good for so long, and ultimately also why they stopped working. People stopped doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Look at G2. Like they went on an interview and said, we were getting shit on by Nocturne Oriana, so we didn't know what to do. And I'm just like, bitch, why the fuck not just ban one of them? What the fuck? Huh? Just ban Nocturne or Oriana. You don't even need to ban both. Just pick one, ban it, move on with your life. Like, hello? Why do you need to play what you used to?
I can't believe they played it 4 games in a row, bro.
Disturbing. I'm just saying would have never happened under my or Rekkles' watch, and I wanted to give him the respect for that because he deserves it, and he deserves the credit for that 1,000%. What everyone else did, sure, but that right there, 100% Rekkles. The reason why G2 was playing all this crazy shit, I'm telling you right now, is because Rekkles set the standard for that being success in Europe. I'm not even joking. That's my opinion. Feel free to disagree. I don't care. He set the standard for that. It wasn't G2 because they went to Worlds 2016, 2017 and got absolutely... You can bleep that one out as well if you want, but that's the reality. And when 2018 Rekkles showed up and showed everyone, you play what you're fucking good at and that's how you do it. That's what he fucking did. He picked what he was good at with no mercy. And shit on everyone in LEC the whole year. Fucking went to Worlds, shit on people doing his thing. I fundamentally believe it was Rekkles that started it. I will say G2 carried the torch very fucking well. I know for a fact because I tried to stop them from carrying that torch. I could not. They were fucking good at the game.
No, so one of them.
All props to them there. Just after it, my homie, because really I believe that him and Hilly, they're different breeds. Like they're really fucking good.
Agreed, brother. Okay, bro. I think I hope I think that like the way I saw like when like you came over to the World Championship and you won your championship. I could instantly know that you feel like a great responsibility to like 100%. The region in terms of how you speak about 2018, 2019, like the past years. It's like being the best team in your region, and you carry a responsibility, and I hope that that there is of course a hint of ego and arrogance naturally because you're a competitor, but I hope that people can see like the message of what you're trying to share, because I think it's very clear that you care about the region and you wanted to move forward in the right direction for the sake of all of us. And you, like, I know that in your best imagination is that it's like you walk into the LCS and somehow all the 7 other top laners you play against somehow became better than you. I feel like that would be like the dream for you in that circumstance because you would react to that the best way possible. It's like, I'm going to get better now and gonna work to get better now,
I agree with you. I think it would be a blessing, but I wanted to clarify one disclaimer. I didn't speak on FlyQuest because I haven't thought about my team, actually. I haven't reflected. I've only reflected on myself and reflected on, my experience. That's why I spoke of Hilly and Rekkles so often here and none of my teammates. I think I have 4 phenomenal teammates. I have a phenomenal staff. I love very much working with them and I would love to spend another year with them. I really think they went above and beyond to not only meet the expectations, but go above. And I'm really, really happy with them. I haven't given any feedback or shared my opinion what I currently think because I need to think about it and I want to be precise in the feedback I give because I value them very much. They are the future. They are the future, in my opinion. For Inspired specifically, I can see him very shortly entering my Hall of Fame, my own little personal Hall of Fame. But honestly, I could see all 4 of them go there. I really can. I just think he's the closest. I really value all of them, and I genuinely believe that they are amazing players. And I'm really grateful for how hard they worked this year. They deserve all the success they got.
Well, that's the perfect way to end it. Bwipo, I appreciate your time. Our conversations are always long, but they feel always very short. So thank you very much.
I had a blast. Thank you very much. I apologize.